Why does it feel like everybody has like their own fucking program for chatting with people online? God damn, this is so annoying. It's not letting me connect. Yep. Nope. Wait, okay. Is this working?
You have to start asking. You can't get in here.
Okay. Yeah, I can hear you. I'm trying to, but I don't think this is going to work with my camera, unfortunately. Yeah, I have two different kinds of cameras connected to my computer, but the camera that I use is done through a capture card. But it seems like whatever this online application is, it won't let me show that capture card. Can you just take a picture of me like being mad or something in the... Well, so I've got, this is one capture card that's showing right now. For some reason, this one works, but if I try to switch to my other capture card, it just keeps saying that it's not getting permission from Google, even though I'm giving it. I'm gonna run upstairs and try to grab another C930. I might be able to use that. Hold on 1 second.
All right.
All right, how is this okay? What? Oh. Okay. Nice to meet you too, buddy. Is it okay if I go live? Am I if I'm live or? Oh, okay. All right. I don't know what's going on.
I'm a little disconcerted that you guys are all so pretty. I don't like this.
Oh.
Well, thank you.
You make it get me insecure
I'm
now.
not happy.
Way to go. Way to go.
I got the oldest down though. At least I got something.
Okay.
Barely though. Dave's catching up though.
Catching up to what?
My age.
But then
I
by
watched
the time
your,
I get to your age, you won't be your age anymore. You'll be another
Well,
age.
yes, I know how it works.
I watched your debate on Jordan Peterson from a couple days ago with the guy that was saying that makeup is a should be ruled out in the workplace.
Sure.
How in the world you stayed on there for 4 hours, man?
How in the world can you say that it's not? That makes no sense. Like how?
It's a sexual thing. Men can't contain themselves long enough to get over the makeup.
Please.
That's pretty ridiculous.
That's the lamest excuse I've ever heard.
Listen, man, that's the incel world we live in these days. Okay.
What's the excuse? What are we talking about?
Oh,
Makeup.
Makeup is the reason sexual assault happens? No.
Oh, that's retarded.
Yeah.
Who said that?
Indeed.
Jordan Peterson.
Okay, that's dumb.
Oh, Jordan Peterson says something stupid. Get the fuck out of here. Get out.
He says a lot of dumb things. You know, I agree with a lot of stuff that he says, but then he says stuff like that. I'm like, dude.
Well, as Destiny pointed out in that debate, he didn't really say that. The guy asked him from Vice asked him, is it a detriment to have women in the workplace? And he said, well, I don't know, it could be. And then he said, well, is it a positive thing? Well, I don't know, it could be. He couldn't answer the question. He was going
Right
around and around.
So he didn't actually
ways
say that. It was just interpreted that way, right? Like a lot of
It
people
was
on
implied, I think.
Twitter.
It was implied, I think.
Yeah, well, I think JP goes out of his way to have a lot of implicatures he's not actually intending, or maybe he does. I don't know. I think he's ambiguous for a reason.
Yeah, he's very crafty. I would say intentionally.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with that as well because he's erudite. I mean, he's not a dumb guy. Say what you want about
No,
JP.
he's
The
pretty
guy is
smart.
not an idiot.
Depending
so
on
I
what
think he
depending on
knows
what he's
exactly
talking
what he's
about.
doing.
Definitely depends on what he's talking about. When he's talking about
But again-
psychology related stuff,
again-
he's usually pretty intelligent. But when he steps outside of that, when he starts talking
Yes.
about like philosophy or history or politics, oh my god, he's so stupid.
Sure.
Almost
I can-
as
I can-
So
bad
how
as-
do I
but
change
again-
my camera? Because I've been
Almost as bad as Ian over
cameras
here,
right
but not
here.
quite as much.
and
Okay,
Kyle
if you go
explained it to you in a
to
second.
Ian, are you using Chrome?
yeah, I'm using Chrome.
Okay, go up to your the three dots in the corner, and then click
Yep, got that.
settings, and then go down to advanced,
Okay, yeah.
and then the that first section that says privacy and security. You're gonna go to the next to the last section there. It'll say content settings. Click that, and then click your camera, and then it should give you the option
Okay.
to
All right.
switch
I'll
to.
find it. Yeah. 'cause
There's
you got
already
different cameras running.
and if it doesn't automatically register, you might have to refresh or drop out and come back in. For the past 45 minutes, there's been around 450 people waiting.
Okay,
Which
wow.
is,
okay,
which
that's
is-
huge.
yeah, it's big for us.
Yeah. Yep. All right, I'll just drop back in and out. Right back.
Okay, it should pick up.
Yes. Now are you streaming somewhere right now? That you need a link.
Yeah, I'm on
for us
Twitch. You don't have to link my
somewhere, or
shit.
You are
It's
just
fine.
recording it.
No, I'm streaming, but you don't have to link anything. What's your guys' link, and then I can link it to my people.
I can email it to you.
Yeah, sure.
How's it going? Yeah, my favorite thing with JP is when he was saying about the whole DNA that hundreds and hundreds of years ago, shamanistic people were closing their eyes and seeing squiggly things that was somehow related to this universal knowledge, is giving them information about DNA.
Well, that's his. He's pulling that from Jung, the idea that there are like universal archetypes that
Jung,
are
yeah.
pervasive throughout all of human society. Yeah, it's very fucking stupid, but that's where it's coming from.
Very, very.
Or I guess not that stupid if you're religious, which he seems to be. So I don't know.
Yeah, but he never
I
comes
think
out
it
and says that
I-
he is. That's the other thing. He won't.
Well, he doesn't
won't
come out and
commit
say that
on
he is
anything.
anything. Yeah, he's a little. He's very
Yeah.
slippery.
Yeah, he doesn't take a lot of hard positions. Right.
2-minute warning, guys.
He walks a lot of lines.
2 minutes. 2 minutes. Okay.
2 minutos.
So I guess the best way that we'll kind of start this after I kind of introduce the show and you guys, we'll, if I don't know who wants to go first, but I'll kind of pose the question: do we have the right to offend someone? And you can kind of state your opinion on that, and kind of go as deep as you want to, and then that'll be a good stepping off point. Steve and I are just going to be in the kind of in the periphery, making sure that we're going to watch the live chat and make sure that it stays on topic. But other than that, it'll be kind of like a free flowing discussion between the two of you.
Sounds good.
I have nothing in place for Ian.
Oh yeah.
He should be on
I'm
camera.
fixing my camera. Yeah, I'm fixing
Yeah,
it.
he's fixing his camera.
Okay.
Is
Says your
anything
camera's
on?
It says it's on, but I'm not getting any data from you.
Oh my lord.
Try
great.
refreshing.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Oh, shit.
Oh shit. You okay, Kyle?
I think so.
What happened?
Oh, man.
That sounded not good.
I'm glad that happened.
You can't see him, Steve, but I can.
I can't.
He
I
dropped
know
his
you can't.
off
camera.
air.
Oh,
It fell off the fucking stand. Okay,
damn.
I'm good.
Yeah, I can't see it obviously, but I can hear it. So.
Let's do it.
All right. Come on now. Really? That's a first.
What's up?
What?
It's sitting there spinning its little wheels.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. Like it can't connect to YouTube?
Really?
Oh, why?
Amazing.
679 waiting. Wow, that's I think that's the biggest we've
Technology.
ever had waiting.
600.
They must really like you, Ian.
No, they're Destiny's fans.
I know. I'm kidding. No kidding.
Why the fuck do you have so
You
many
don't have
flat
any
Earth
fans,
debates
man.
on this channel? What the fuck? I'm just looking at this. Is this like a hotly contested topic with you guys?
Are you
dude, I
curious?
guess so.
Yes.
I would've-
I
That's what
I
we're,
don't know.
That's what we're known for.
Oh, I'm sorry. I had no
Hotly
idea.
contested.
Damn. Okay.
okay, this is
What's,
yeah, but-
what's like the current track record right now? Who's
Have we
winning?
ever
The
had a
flat
flat-
earthers or the spherical guys?
Definitely the spherical guys, but their movement's growing. Like they just had their second Flat Earth International conference in Colorado, and it was double the attendance of the first one. It's I mean
Yeah.
the guys that are in it are hardcore in it.
Oh, that's the beauty of the
Yeah.
internet, I guess.
But yeah, but I think that a lot of us are stemming the growth rate. In other words, it's
Okay.
growing, but it would have been a hell of a lot greater rate if
What's
we
up,
had not
Dave?
stepped in.
Oh, how's that
please
even a
log
thing?
in. Please log into YouTube. Okay. Yeah, it lost my login info. Hold on, I'll be right back.
Oh,
Okay,
Right.
that's fine.
You can fix that pretty easy.
Yeah.
We had your buddy Sargon on a couple of weeks ago. He debated Adam Kokesh.
About what?
Yeah. That was
About flat
was
Earth
it?
stuff?
Anarcho-capitalism.
Oh, why
no,
the fuck was Sargon be on talking
anarcho-capitalism.
about political anything? What does he even know what that shit is?
Well, have you ever? Do you know who? Actually, that was the second time that we've had him on there. He debated Brittany Simon probably 3 months ago, and on intersectionality.
Does he even know what intersection? He doesn't even know what
That's really good,
feminism is.
actually.
How the fuck can he know what intersectionality is? You should ask him when
It
you
was
bring him
pretty
on
good,
next.
actually.
This will be like, I know it goes
All
good
right.
because he can just
All
repeat
right.
talking points that he hears on Twitter.
right.
You should actually ask him what some of these things are when he comes on. I'd be very curious to hear a definition from Sargon on what he considers intersectionality to be. I would love to hear him talk about that.
Well, he tells you. He tells you in that he actually attempts to define it in that
Does he tell you what
Alright.
it is, or does he say it's actually
ready.
it's a big conspiracy theory by whatever random buzzword he knows at the time to destroy society?
that
or something?
one.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So he doesn't
one.
actually know. What
No,
the
that's
fuck
that's the
anything
way
is.
he defines it. Yeah.
Okay.
But I mean,
We're ready.
I have a
Dave.
very.
We're ready.
Hold on, what's
Ready
going
to
on,
go.
Dave?
We're ready.
Alright, okay, cool.
So earbud warning here.
Non sequitur. Your facts are incorrect. Non sequitur. Your facts are uncoordinated.
Welcome back to all of you watching. It's quite the turnout for Destiny and Ian. Hello, gentlemen. Welcome to the show. Glad to have you both here.
Hey, thanks for having us on.
I'm happy to be here
Absolutely.
right now.
And Destiny.
Yep. What's up?
Well, thank you both for coming on. I think this is going to be a great chat. I'm not really going to go into the normal announcements that we do here beforehand. We're just going to kind of get right in. Don't waste any more time, other than to say that we do have on the 12th. People were asking about gang stalkers. We had some people send us some links for the people who adhere to the whole gang stalking conspiracy. I actually have a couple of them coming on that date, so we will be covering that and find out why they are targeted individuals, or even if they are. So we'll see that on the 12th. Okay, tonight we're going to be talking about free speech and the right to offend. It's a topic that's constantly coming up. From Alex Jones to shadow banning on Twitter. There's all sorts of different areas that this can go into, and these. Actually, we have two really popular people in the gaming world here, so I thought this would be a great pairing. And I'll let you guys introduce yourselves and tell people what you do and why you do it. Ian, you want to start us off?
Yeah, sure. So I used to be a game journalist and then became a journalist, I suppose. That's a dirty word these days. Now I just do YouTube. Yeah, that's pretty much it. And I think you might know me from Twitter because I have a lot of followers for some reason. And yeah, people follow me for memes and stuff. Yeah, that's what I do.
Okay. And Destiny.
Hey, real quick, if I refresh this page so that because I think it's using my shit microphone right now, is that okay, or will it fuck all of your shit up?
No, it's fine.
No, it's
You
fine.
can
We can
refresh
do
it.
that.
You'll just
Okay,
drop
hold
out
on.
for a second.
Refreshing for 1 second.
Saturday Night Fights.
All
We're
right,
gonna be
is this
having
good?
Dallas
Does it sound any
Engineer
better?
and,
Or?
Team Skeptic. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
it sounds a lot better. It's your proper
Yeah,
microphone.
really good.
Yep. Okay. Cool. All right. Was it on me? Am I supposed to introduce myself?
Oh, yes, we were on you.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. My name is Destiny. I started off as a semi-professional gamer. People know me for video game streaming and for politics, and I do like half and half politics and video games right now.
He has a lot of debates on his channel, guys. You should check him out. I was watching we were talking earlier. I watched a Jordan Peterson. There was a Jordan Peterson fanboy that he had a debate with, and it was something else. I mean, how the patience that you have sometimes on these debates is pretty impressive.
Thanks. We'll see how patient I am tonight.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, let's jump
Okay, then.
right into it then. Oh yeah, you two
We had a
have
pretty
you two
bad
have.
last time we met. Yeah, we've met.
Yeah, I was getting ready to.
They got
I was getting ready
history.
to ask you. You've,
So can I cuss on this show? Am I allowed to?
oh yeah,
Fuck no.
absolutely.
Fuck no. Fuck.
Oh,
Yeah. Fuck you can't.
yeah. I was a bit of an asshole, and
Kyle and I
I
are
didn't
the only
get
two
my
that
facts
can-
right. And yeah, at the time, Destiny he pretty much schooled me, and then Medicare was there, and he sort of like took what I was trying to say and put it forward. But yeah, that was a bad performance for me. Whatever.
Oh, okay. Maybe some middle ground here tonight then. That's
Yeah,
promising.
yeah,
That's
maybe.
promising.
Maybe.
All right, so let's dive right into it then. Who wants to start us off? When I ask the question, do we have the right to offend? Does anybody have like a right off the cuff answer or a direct answer?
Yeah,
Or is
sure.
it nuanced?
Sure. I've got an answer. What does it mean to offend someone, right? Do you mean like go out of your way to piss somebody off, or do you mean, say something and then a person gets offended? Because that usually, like, that's half the time, right? That's half the time you say something wrong and someone gets offended by it because they choose to take offense. So did you do something wrong by saying something wrong, or is it on them? Is the onus on them to not be offended?
Well, I mean, in the general sense of like, if you like, let's say a slur, if we'll use that example, if someone wanted to use a racial slur towards someone intentionally, do they have the right to do that with freedom of speech?
Well, I think that yes, they do. They do have the right to do that, just like they have the right to say anything that questions authority or anybody else, right? Because where do you draw the line? I mean, if you create a law against quote unquote hate speech, then you're essentially saying that there's an authority that decides what is okay to say and what's not okay to say. And so what's okay to say right now might not be okay to say in the next administration. So, right now you can, criticize, all anything that you want. But what happens, when the next people who take over decide that, yeah, you can't criticize white men, that's a bad thing to do. It's a racist thing to do. We're going to censor anyone who criticizes white people. That would be, that would obviously backfire against people who want these laws in place. So that's the danger of it. It's creating a precedent that I don't think you can easily rein in.
Wait, do we have laws in the United States right now that
Destiny?
make it so that you can't say certain things, or are we pretty much good to say whatever?
No,
we want?
not in America, but I'm talking about Europe. I'm talking about Europe.
Okay, so
I
in the
think
United
there
States,
are laws in the U.S. that prevent you from inciting people to violence. Like, that's the only law that's there right now, and I completely agree with that law. I mean, if you tell someone, hey, go kill somebody else, that is an incitement to violence. If you're calling for a riot, like burn down this building, this courthouse, that can get you arrested for it, because that's, you're inciting people. So that's not considered free speech.
what about like doxing somebody? Do you think you should be allowed to post somebody's personal information on social media?
Sure. Why not?
Okay. What about things like swatting? Like if you call a police station and make a false report or
Swatting?
whatever?
Oh, absolutely not. That's not under free speech. I mean, that is, you're inciting violence, or rather not inciting violence, but causing violence, right? You can cause a person to get killed if you swat them.
But not necessarily, right?
Not necessarily, but again, it's a waste of police time. Those cops, they are using, they could be elsewhere saving lives or doing whatever, just doing their jobs, and you're sending them off to kill somebody. So that should be illegal, and it is illegal in many places. Like that one guy who swatted that Call of Duty player, right? He swatted the wrong house, guy got killed, he's now in jail. So yeah, it's illegal.
Okay, so I'm just trying to make sure I understand what you're saying. So you're saying that swatting somebody should be considered illegal because there is a probability, some percentage, that person could actually get hurt as a result of that action, right? Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's correct, yeah.
So how does doxing not fall under that?
Doxing doesn't fall into that because anything can be doxing. I mean, what is doxing exactly? We need to establish that, and I don't think
so
there's
doxing
any
is
legal
posting information.
terminology for what doxing is.
Sure. So doxing would be posting information that somebody would have a reasonable expectation to be private in a public forum. So, for instance, if I'm posting a phone number or an address of somebody that reasonably doesn't want that posted on some public forum where it can be easily accessed.
Yep. Unfortunately, the internet is what it is, and people put their own information out there. So is it a crime for someone else to find that information and put it out there? I don't think it is. It might be rude. It might be a very mean-spirited thing to do, which is what a lot of people do, obviously. But is it illegal? I don't think it's illegal, and it shouldn't be illegal because anyone can do that. I mean, look at journalists, right? When CNN goes to somebody's house and interviews them, and they don't even know that they're going to be interviewed, that is essentially a bit like doxing, because everyone who's watching it, who might know where that person lives, now they know exactly where that person lives. If that person's unpopular or something.
Wait, are you telling me that CNN
there's
goes to
a
people's...
question as to how are you going to legalize it?
You think CNN goes to people's houses and does interviews and publishes them without that person ever signing a release and without protecting the identity or the address of that person?
That has happened.
I'm not asking if it has
with
happened
one
by
person
mistake.
who, I think,
Sure, so one time I'm sure, but as a general policy, I
not
don't
by
believe any...
mistake, by actual. As a general policy, I don't think they do that on all the time. No. But
So
it has
wait,
happened.
with
so
who?
my question is, do you want these journalists to go to jail because they did that? I mean, does TMZ have to go to jail because they run up to celebrities' houses or whatever and do whatever they want?
Sure.
I don't
so
think they should be.
So we're
I mean,
complaining.
paparazzi is shit.
We're conflating a lot of different things right here with celebrities versus non-celebrities, public figures versus non-public figures. So I'm not aware that any major media organization will run to personal people's houses and publish interviews with them without them signing a release or something first. Does this actually happen? I'm very curious when CNN did this.
It has happened. They did this with a Trump supporter. I think a year ago. She ran a Facebook group, one that was like super popular for Trump supporters, and she posted some racist stuff, I think, and they cornered her at her house. Yeah, that's a thing that happened. And also, there's that one lawyer, the one who was like super racist, and people were hounding him on the street in New York City. The one who made some comments about Hispanic people. And that guy was hounded basically to his workplace, to home, and he didn't sign any release forms, but journalists followed him anyway. I don't think that those journalists should be prosecuted under any law because what they did was a public service, obviously. But even if it wasn't, what they did wasn't illegal, nor should it be.
Gotcha. So in the video with you're talking about the old lady that ran the Facebook group that was linked to the Russian propaganda outlet that was identified in one of the Mueller indictments. Her address was never posted.
Yeah, I know it wasn't posted, but people would say that is doxing because they hounded her, publicly, put her on TV, published her face, her name. That is one of the things that people call doxing, and that's why it's important to establish what doxing actually is. Because I mean, I've seen people like say Tonkasa, for example, right? When you put his name out there, he accused you of doxing him. That is what I mean. Like, I don't think that was doxing, but he says it was doxing. A lot of his fans say it was doxing. Right, and they're like, ban Destiny because he's doxing people. He's doxed Tonkasa because you published his face that was actually already out there on certain websites if you knew where to look. And, they call that doxing.
We're pivoting so much around here. Okay, so firstly, Tonkasa's face wasn't randomly available on the internet somewhere. It was literally on his IMDb page. Okay, so it wasn't just like I dig through like weird Facebook archives. It was literally on an IMDb page. The lady that was running the Facebook group that was affiliated with the Internet Research Agency, the Russia-controlled agency, was identified by the Mueller indictments. She agreed to do that interview, and she agreed to talk to those reporters. These aren't just random people whose information is being published for malicious reasons on Twitter accounts. This is way, way, way different than you and I are having a disagreement, and I'm going to post your address on my Twitter account. Do you think that those are different, or do you think all of that is just the exact same?
No, I don't think it's the exact same. It's obviously different. Yeah, there are different circumstances.
So then my very pointed question is that if I get into a disagreement with somebody, not a public figure, not somebody that runs a big Facebook group, not somebody that agrees to do an interview with the media, not somebody that agrees to have their information published somewhere. If I get into an argument with another private person and I decide that I want to tweet out their docs, they say, hey, by the way, this guy is a Trump or a Hillary supporter. This is where he lives. Should I be allowed to do that? Should that be protected speech, do you think, ethically?
Ethically, no. I mean, the platform can ban you for it. Right?
No. Okay, I'm not asking for what the rules are, whatever. I'm saying that what should it be? Because right now you would get banned for it, but do you think that should be considered on a similar level as, say, swatting or something?
Not swatting, no. It's different.
So you don't think that posting somebody's address...
I mean, it's not swatting. You're not going to kill somebody by doing that. No.
Sure, but
I don't think so, no.
Sure, so neither is swatting. In swatting, we identified that swatting was bad because it has the potential to lead to somebody suffering great harm. I don't see how doxing somebody on Twitter and then identifying their political affiliation can't also produce a similar outcome. That's what I'm trying to figure out.
I mean, but couldn't you say the same thing about just releasing a person's name, depending on how much information is already out there about a person? You don't even need to publish an address. If people know that this person said a bad thing or a thing that they disagreed with, couldn't they look it up themselves? I mean, so where do we draw the line? That's the danger of controlling speech, right? It's controlling what people can or cannot put out there.
Yeah, so if
you're trying to create a law against it or even rules against it, it's dangerous.
So right now you've already drawn the line between swatting and doxing, and I'm just asking you why the line exists there. I don't know why you keep saying where do we draw the line, because you've already agreed that a line exists, and you've drawn it right now between swatting and doxing.
Okay, so swatting's an actual crime. It's an actual crime. It's like calling the police. That takes an action on your part, and you're telling the police where to go.
We're not talking about what actual crimes are. We're talking about what they should be. This is a discussion of how things should be. There's no point in doing this podcast for both of us to look up what the current laws are.
So if we're talking hypotheticals, If we're speaking hypothetically, I would say that swatting is wrong because it's a direct action. You're calling the police with the intent of basically possibly killing that person. But when you dox somebody, that is more vague, right? It's vague. If anyone can dox anybody, sometimes even by accident, like, oh, you accidentally dox yourself. That's a thing that can happen. Or
we're not
if
talking
you're a
about,
journalist
we're
and
not
you publish
talking,
someone's information of like
so we keep
voting,
mudding
for
up,
example,
we
voting
keep,
records.
we keep
you publish
mudding
it
up.
out there, someone can argue,
Yeah, so I don't know why we keep
you
muddying
can argue
up
that, oh, you tried to dox this person because they put their voting records out there.
I don't know why we keep muddying up this conversation. This is a very clear, very pointed question. I'm not talking about somebody accidentally doxing themselves, or I'm not talking about somebody accidentally, posting a Facebook post that accidentally leads to someone else's information. I'm talking about two people are having an argument, and one guy says, fuck you, you're a Hillary supporter. I'm going to post your phone number, name, and address on my Twitter. Do you think that type of thing should be allowed? And if you don't, then I guess we kind of agree. If you do think that should be allowed, I'm asking you to give me the difference between that and swatting somebody.
Okay, fair enough. Speaking ethically, no, I don't think that should be allowed. It's obviously uncivil, and it creates danger for people, right? I mean, not just danger per se, but it creates this environment where everyone's afraid to say something because someone might dox them. And that is kind of the world that we live in, where some people are afraid to come out as Trump supporters because they might get doxxed. So, yeah.
Okay, cool. So basically what we're kind of making arguments for here, what we're kind of establishing is that there are some types of speech that so far I think both of us don't believe should be allowed. And these are types of speech that lead to people actively being harmed, especially where the intention of the person doing this type of speech is to harm somebody. So for instance, if I scream fire in a crowded theater, people are going to get hurt. Obviously, it's a malintent action. If I dox somebody, and especially with the intention of getting someone to go harass them or hurt them or something, that's bad. If I swat somebody, I'm doing that. So now the question is, let's say that you have a group of people that advocate for a certain political ideology, we'll say Nazism, that would lead to actual physical violence against certain types of people. Should their speech be protected? Why or why not? And if it should be, why is that different from swatting or doxing somebody?
That's a good question. That's actually a very good question. I think that, for instance, Nazis, it depends on what they're saying, right? If they're inciting people to violence, if they're saying things that are like Jews are responsible for brainwashing children and turning them to pedophiles or some nonsense like that, then maybe that shouldn't be allowed, because it is clearly disinformation and it's intended to shake up the status quo, right? It's to rile people up and basically get them, fired up and say, hey, let's go kill all the Jewish people. That's what their intent is when they say these things, and they try to defend themselves by saying, oh, free speech. But what they're saying isn't exactly, it's like anyone with a brain can see that what they're trying to do. It's obvious that they're trying to incite violence, but they're doing it in a way that's like crafty or clever, right?
Sure,
they're not doing it in a way that's saying, hey, we're just asking questions. They're not doing that, right? They're actually saying, look at what the Jewish people are doing. That's what they're saying. Yeah.
So do you think that anybody that, for instance, is highly public about things like the Jewish question or whatever, would this fall under this group of people? So these are people essentially that claim that...
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, interesting. I mean...
Yeah.
I don't know who's supposed to be on whose side.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of anti-Semites.
Okay. Well, I mean, it sounds like your stances on this are more extreme than mine then, so I don't know. I don't know which side we're supposed to argue for.
I deal with a lot of racism IRL, there are nationalists over here, like ultra-nationalists. I won't say they're nationalists because I think nationalists are just normal people who love their country, right? Ultra-nationalists, that's the term we give to these people in Asia, is they're ethnic nationalists, basically. They're ethno-nationalists, and they believe that anyone from the outside, or who's like mixed race, I'm mixed race, for example, are invaders, even though, my ancestors have been here for like 500 years, maybe even longer than some of them have been. But we're like outsiders to them. And they always ask these questions. They'll say, look at those Chinese people. I mean, why do they have all the businesses? And obviously we don't have all the businesses, but it's a quote unquote truth that they like to bring up, right? They'll say that, look, all those Chinese people are prosperous. The richest man in Malaysia, he's a billionaire. We have to ask questions about this. Why isn't that money, going to us instead? Like they don't look at the broader picture. Obviously, he's a Malaysian Chinese person who's bringing business to this country, and they don't care about that. They only care about the fact that he is not of their race, right? And these are the same types of people as white nationalists who will point to Israel, who will point to Jewish people being rich and successful in Hollywood or New York, and they will not for a second think, okay, maybe those Jewish people are Americans. Like they're bringing business to America, not to whatever it is they think they are. Like there's some weird conspiracy theory going on, and this is how they operate. So when they ask these questions, when they point things out, when they ask the Jewish questions, things like that, it's an incitement because they actually want people to go out on the streets and start, rioting in demand for money or whatever, because people are disillusioned, people are disenfranchised, they feel poor, and they need someone to blame. They need a scapegoat, just like the Germans did in World War II. They were disenfranchised, they were poor because of World War One, and they were like, well, Hitler was like, well, it's actually the Jews' fault. It's not your fault that you're poor.
Sure. So then here's a question. Let's say that somebody is intentionally spreading misinformation in such a way that could lead to like the severe harm of groups of people. Do you think that that these people are probably ethically in the wrong for what they're doing?
Absolutely. 100%.
Okay, so I'm very curious then. Like a month ago, you were tweeting things saying that climate change is a hoax invented by neo-Marxists, when this is something that is pretty much ubiquitously...
That's a fun one. Yeah, okay. Yeah. I can explain that one. I don't actually think that climate change is a hoax per se. I think that climate change is real. It does exist. And whether it's man-made, I think there is no question that there is a percentage of it that is man-made. But how much of it, we don't know yet, right? We don't have the data, not the hard data anyway, not conclusive data. And I do think that there are political organizations, like the guy was quote tweeting. If you look at my tweet, there's actually a guy who was quote tweeting. He's one of those types of people who are trying to politicize climate change. And sometimes it is, some people just believe certain things. Like maybe vegans believe that we should save the animals. So, stopping climate change is in their interest to do so. But then there are other people who basically are blaming capitalism. They're saying that the world is the way it is. People are suffering and people are dying. It's all hyperbole, of course.
So here's a question:
and
why don't you think
climate change to stop them?
Why don't you think capitalism could come under fire for something like climate change?
Why should it be? I mean,
because capitalism
is the biggest hope against it. So you can fix it. That's the thing. I mean, how do you mobilize, a corporation to fix things?
So you can't fix it with capitalism. So the problem with capitalism is capitalism uses free markets, right, between producers and customers in order to negotiate prices for what goods should cost or services should cost. But in capitalism, one problem that we see, it's called a type of market failure, is an externality. So an externality is something that's not taken into account when factoring in the price of a good or the impact on a laborer or a consumer or whatever. And it can cause a negative to everybody that nobody has to pay for. So for instance, let's say that two firms are competing against one another to produce a product. In a capitalist society, the person that can produce the best product at the lowest price is going to be rewarded in an open market. But the problem is if one person can produce that good at half the cost as the other person by polluting, the pollution, which is an externality there, is something that cannot be accounted for in a capitalist system. So the only way to address it would be to use mixed markets, to have a government come in and either subsidize some sort of climate change related stuff or penalize people for doing something. So I think it's fair to say that capitalism in large can be blamed on a lot of climate change related things because capitalism doesn't do anything on its own to solve climate problems because there's no profit incentive tied into doing it.
Right. Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I think you're completely correct. I think there should be controls. I mean, without the FDA, we'd probably be eating a lot of asparagus that's full of E. coli, right? We'd be dying because there'd be no incentive for any of these producers to actually clean up their foods because they can say, hey, only 1% of our people who ate E. coli died of E. coli poisoning. So why do we care? Yeah, so obviously there should be controls. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, I mean, that's one of the reasons why people are very critical of capitalism then for being because capitalism has caused a lot more pollution and whatnot, inarguably. Now, amongst a ton of other positives as well, we're having a conversation on the internet, thousands of miles potentially away from each other, which is cool. But that's one of the reasons why capitalism comes under fire for being a big driver of climate change. I don't think it's necessarily not fair for that to happen. I guess my problem is that I see these claims spread around a lot, and it's kind of ironic that we're on a channel that is dedicated to flat Earth denial. And I mean, climate change and man-made climate change is pretty strongly agreed upon by most scientists. So it's kind of frustrating sometimes that it still seems like there's a big movement of people out there that are trying to say it's not real, especially when they claim that other people are trying to politicize it. Like the science isn't unclear on this, but people that get political with it are. And it seems like a lot of people on the right, especially Donald Trump, who's at the top of the Republican Party right now, are very politically against things related to climate change because of the economic implications of those policies that would have to be implemented if we really were trying to combat climate change effectively.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Okay.
A lot of agreements.
That's well said. Yeah, that was well said, actually. That's well
Group
said.
hug. Love.
What's your your take on the right to offend, Destiny. Do you think that there's the people that have an inherent right to be offensive if they want to?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm more extremist than Ian. I think that violence can result from free speech, but I think the concept. I'm very much a liberal at heart. Sometimes at the hatred of my fans, but I think that freedom of speech is very important. I think there's a cost for that freedom of speech. For instance, things like, say, 9/11, right, are things that we have to suffer because we don't give the government the ability to monitor all of our communications, for instance, things like that, that we have to pay penalties sometimes for the freedoms that we value. I think freedom of speech is important enough to recognize that there are going to be some trade-offs there, but I think the concept itself is defensible enough. Usually where I draw the line are people like bad faith actors are people that I don't think should have any place in the marketplace of ideas or any kind of platform or whatever. But other than that, I'm usually pretty open on most things related to freedom of speech. But I could be persuaded if the costs were great enough on one end or the other.
Steve?
You guys had mentioned earlier some terminologies, and I think it's kind of important to go back to what you said before about when you ask about should we allow things like the right to be offended, should we allow things like doxing? And I think that term allow is ambiguous because are you talking about a legal sense? Are you talking about an ethical sense? There is distinctions to be made here. Again, nobody, I don't think in the right mind would say, oh, we should allow swatting. Clearly, that's something that is egregious. It puts somebody inherently in line of fire. Literally, you have a situation that can result in death. Can doxing do this? Yes, theoretically it could. It can have very harmful malintent to people that have been doxed. But when you say, should we allow it? What do you both mean by that? What do you obviously are you advocating a legal perspective of it? Or are you saying we should not allow it as a community and frown upon people that dox because there is harmful things that can come from doxing? I find it to be unethical to do so. But then again, what do you also mean by doxing? Destiny, you can go ahead.
Okay, sure. So in terms of what we should allow versus what we shouldn't allow, most of my positions so far have been prescriptive ethically. So these are things that I think we ought not to do in society or ought to do in society. In terms of who should enforce it, I'm very, very, very uncomfortable assigning that enforcement to the government. I'm much more in favor of companies themselves kind of taking the charge there, although I think that one could raise the point that there's not much of a difference at this point. So for instance, we might say, we're not going to make it. We're not going to make it so that a certain form of speech should be banned. However, if that form of speech is banned on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and domain registrars, does it really matter if the government is providing you with some freedom of speech if effectively you can't actually voice it anywhere because all of the largest public platforms are privately owned? I mean, there's a lot of tricky topics there, but in terms of what should or shouldn't be platformed, I mean, for me, things that cause direct physical harm or are calls to direct physical violence, like doxing or swatting, I think these are things that, at the very least, privately should be absolutely against terms of service and whatnot. Legally, if it's very direct, like I would say doxing and swatting are very direct, I think these should be punishable to some extent. When it comes to things like hate speech, so I would define hate speech as a type of ideology that pretty directly or slightly indirectly calls for harm to people. So, for instance, things like Nazism, things like alt-right people. I don't think legally these things should be touched at all. I think that privately, I think there's a strong case for removing these things. And I think that personally, I think that people can react to these in violent ways and be justified depending on the type of rhetoric that's being spewed. So for instance, if you're like somebody like Richard Spencer, I think you can have ethical justifications for attacking if you see somebody like this, because they're essentially pushing an ideology that might lead to the extermination of you or other Americans that you think who have lives that are worth defending.
Okay, and I think there's something to be said for that. However, I think there's like 5 different avenues you can go down just with that one response that you had. But it's very, very good. But Ian, same question to you, especially in regards to the trade-off from safety to security, right? When you have these free speech things, there is a trade-off. You obviously recognize that. So when talking about the enforcement of the efficacy of these things, when you say we shall not commit doxing, right? That is an ethical consideration that normatively, I think as a society, we all would say is not a good thing. But should we have the government enforce it? Should we have the platforms enforce it? Should we individually enforce it? Have enforcement?
Obviously, I think it all starts at home, right? It all starts at home and with the individual, I should say, and that we should enforce it for ourselves. We need to have moral compasses. We need to have an ethical set of guidelines that we live by. I think that's important. But failing that, I don't think it's the government's, it's not their place to say, hey, you can't do this, because the government is there to provide security, safety, and all these nice things to us, but I don't think it's there to be a nanny state. And that's the problem with a lot of European governments, where they're acting like they're your parents, and they're saying, you can't say these things because it might hurt somebody's feelings. I mean, that's how bad it's gotten in some places. I think in Austria, where someone criticized, there's a free speech issue right now, somebody criticized Islam, and he got charged by the government for basically hate speech, because that's how they operate. So that's an issue, right? That's an issue. But I don't see that happening in America. I don't see that happening in Canada or a lot of other places. But so I don't think that should be the norm. I don't think the government should step in and say, hey, you can't say these things. But I do think that as a society, at least, if you're running a platform, then you probably don't want a lot of Nazis on it, right? You probably don't want a lot of Nazis screaming for the deaths of Jews. Otherwise, you turn to Gab, and no one else wants to use Gab. So it's really, honestly, in your own interest to make sure that your platform doesn't become a haven for Nazis, because no one else is going to go there. So you don't want to cater to that unless you yourself might be a Nazi. So, that's the thing. That's
Well, if you're trying to promote that. If you're trying to promote Nazism, then that's what you're doing. But however,
exactly.
Germany.
I'm not saying that Gab promotes Nazism. I'm not saying he does, right? But he clearly, he dog whistles to them once in a while. He does that, and then he acts like, oh, I didn't say anything. Yeah, okay. It's clear that that's where he thinks his audience is. Yeah.
So I just want to comment on this.
Germany has laws against certain speech, right? Real quick, Germany has certain laws against free speech when it comes to things you cannot kind of do related to Nazism, right? And Destiny had noted.
That is correct.
Destiny had noted there is maybe possible argumentation before if somebody has hate speech, if somebody is inciting these things, if somebody's promoting Nazism, why can't we have laws or the ability to say, you know what, we don't allow that in society? Go ahead, Destiny.
I just wanted to speak real quickly on the Australian thing. I mean, it sounds like in Australia what they were looking to do is pass laws against religious vilification, which I think falls under every...
Oh, this is Austria, not Australia.
Oh, you said Austria? My bad. Okay.
Yeah, Austria. Yeah.
Okay.
Ian, real quick, what's your reaction to when Destiny says that someone like Richard Spencer deserves to get, attacked in public if that happens? What's your
real
reaction
quick,
to
just
that?
to be clear there, I didn't say deserves to. I said that some people could be ethically justified in doing it. I just want to be really clear there.
Sure.
Go
Yeah.
ahead.
Oh,
Yeah. My apologies.
I don't disagree with that. I mean, I think that people can be ethically justified to attack someone whom they perceive as being a threat, like an existential threat to them. So the guy who punched him, I don't know who he is. I don't know what his background is. Maybe he's a persecuted minority. I have no idea, right? But maybe he definitely may have had ethical justification in doing so, but I would not do it myself. I would not support that, because I think that, punching Richard Spencer only gave him a larger platform. So I'm looking at the bigger picture, but I can see the argument being made, and I find it very hard to disagree with. If someone is saying something that is riling other people up and saying that, a group of people should be killed, and you maybe happen to be part of that group of people, or maybe you're an ally to that group of people, maybe you just don't like seeing these things being said, then there is ethical justification, although it is illegal, obviously, because it's assault. So
right,
they're two different things.
Let me ask Destiny. What's your opinion on the Alex Jones situation when he was deplatformed? Do you think that it was that they should have done that?
So I have zero sympathy.
Not could they, because we know that they could.
Yeah, so I have no sympathy for bad faith actors. People that intentionally spread misinformation, I aggressively think should be permanent or deplatformed for long periods of time before ever being allowed back into the public space. I don't think there is any tangible or intangible good offered by these types of people. I think there is tangible harm done by these types of people, and I think that the sooner we get rid of these types of people from the public sphere, the better. Because right now, most of the conversations that we're having publicly aren't even related to anything existing in reality. We can't have real conversations about anything in reality anymore, because we can't even agree what the fuck is real. Like, let's talk. Like, if we want to have a conversation about immigration in Europe, there's a lot of conversation to be had there. Did Sweden take on too many Muslims to their country, from different parts of the world? Yeah, probably. Is Sweden a literal shithole that is on fire with grenades being thrown into family cars and everything? No, what the fuck are you talking about? That's ridiculous. Are there massive amounts of rape gangs running around all over Germany, raping thousands of... No, this is fucking absurd. So like the fact that we can't even get to real conversations because there are so many bad faith actors that are spreading misinformation is just so fucking frustrating to me. And it has made me lose so much faith in any sort of democratic idea of government because people seem incapable of separating out bullshit from real actual information.
And Ian, what do you say to that?
Well, I largely agree with them. My issue here is that if we could have, like, I don't know, an arbiter of some sort, someone who is like 100% objective to decide what is real and what's not, I'd be totally down for that. The problem is the people who want to institute these controls to regulate what other people are saying, right, whether they're telling the truth or whether they're lying, because I think it is important to call out liars. I mean, that's what I do all the time. Destiny does it all the time himself in his own way, right? He calls out right-wing liars. I call some left-wing liars. We do that thing. The problem is somebody, might decide that our truth, like not our truth, but like the truth is not true because he's got his own version of the truth, right? Some dude might think, hey, Destiny's a dangerous person. We need to knock him off of Twitter, because he's saying things that, that are problematic or that they are, very uncomfortable to the truth that they are trying to tell, their narrative. And maybe that's why he's banned from Twitter. I don't know. That's the issue. Like maybe some guy on the alt left or whatever you want to call them, Antifa, gets pissed off that I reported that Antifa did so and so. They might want to knock me off because my truth is not my truth, but rather the truth, the one I'm reporting, is very inconvenient to them, right? So that's the issue. It's like who gets to decide who gets to speak and who doesn't. That's the problem.
Okay, but I think there are cases
Destiny?
where it is very clear, like, what's going on. Like, there are certain types of people that exist in online communities, like, that are very clearly bad faith actors. Like, Ian, I have consistently identified you as one of these horrible fucking people, and you do this shit all the fucking time. Like, how many times will you post, like, a picture of an article, and it's clear you haven't even read it, and then you make some, like, alarmist headline based on the article? Like, you do this shit all the time.
I used to do that a lot, I admit.
When you say used to, you mean, like, this year, right? Or did you turn over a new leaf, like, a month ago, or...?
Not a month. I mean like more recently than that. I can't put an exact date on it, but yeah, I was very into the whole political thing, and it was very easy to get caught up in the narrative. I don't know. I was doing the whole Saul Alinsky thing, and I don't like that stuff anymore. I don't think it's very honest. When people decide, oh hey, I'm going to be dishonest as the other guys, or how I perceive them. Right? That's the game that a lot of people are playing. You notice that on the right wing, sometimes they have the upper hand, but then they kind of ruin it by doing something really stupid. And I'm not for that anymore. I don't think that's effective. I found that to be, in fact, alienating to a lot of my audience. I found that to be, it's just untrue, flat out untrue. And it creates bizarre narratives. That's why things are as fucked up as they are, because everybody wants to play that Saul Alinsky game where they're trying to one-up each other on dishonesty. And I'm not part of that anymore. I'm out.
Okay.
Okay. Let's see if we can find a point where you guys don't necessarily agree so much. Let's go switch to your strong suit, which is gaming. And Ian, we had you on before to kind of talk about this briefly, but the PC culture in gaming and how it's in terms
you
of
mean
like
PC, like political correctness?
Yes. In terms of like
what about
women, we spoke about women, how women are portrayed in games, and certain in a certain light, and how there was a side of people that didn't necessarily agree that was the way to go. Destiny, what are your views on that?
I'll let
What's
you
your
go
views
first
on
on this one, okay?
Okay, Ian.
Yeah. Do you want to just ask me the question? What's the question here? What do you want me to say?
There's a lot of pushback on games nowadays, saying that women are being sort of exposed, I guess.
Oh, okay.
They're being stereotyped.
I think the complaints I think the complaints are largely hyperbolic, because I see a lot of female representation in games, at least the past few years, at least since 2014. We've seen a lot of women being represented in games, whether it's multiplayer games like Overwatch or League of Legends, or whether it is single-player games like Tomb Raider, or even Red Dead Redemption 2, even though it doesn't have a main, like you don't play a female character. Sadie Adler is the main female character, and she's fantastic. Her story's fantastic. So to say that women aren't really getting representation, I don't think that's true. could women get more representation? Absolutely. I mean, we're seeing that in The Last of Us 2. The main character is Ellie, right? You're playing as the daughter of the first character, right? The stepdaughter. So I'm happy to see that. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but I do think that some people are blowing it out of proportion when they say that women are not getting proper representation, or when they complain about the depiction of women in games, and they're saying that Lara Croft, Tomb Raider, Shadow of the Tomb Raider doesn't need to be violent, and that we need to censor it out. And as a matter of fact, the game was censored because of that Polygon article. A guy on Polygon wrote that the game was too violent, and that it showed Lara Croft dying horribly, and it was so unnecessary. It's 2018, and so on and so forth, and so we need to censor it. And so they actually did that, and the game's not really getting any good reviews because of that, because of things like that. I mean, it's already a sort of a mediocre game to begin with, but the fact that they tried to pander to some game journalists in order to, I don't know, like they thought maybe it increased their sales. It didn't. Clearly didn't. If you look at the Steam reviews, they're pretty negative because of the censorship. They removed all the blood and all that. So I think that the market does speak very loudly, and the market is more than happy, to see female characters. And look at Horizon Zero Dawn. It had a main female character. It was celebrated both by gamers as well as, game journalists who thought it was a really woke game, even though it really wasn't. It was not a political game at all. It just had a main female character. And then we're seeing the same thing with Last of Us 2. I mean, I'm excited to play it. Yeah, there are a handful of YouTubers who will bitch and moan about how, it's got a woman on it, therefore it's an SJW thing. But that's ridiculous. I think those people need to, maybe check themselves, because everything to them is SJW. And I think that's ridiculous. Not everything's SJW. Some things clearly are. When you see, Battlefield 5, it's got a woman on the front cover, and it's a World War II game. It's clear who they're trying to virtue signal to, right? It's clearly not gamers. It's the people in the games journalism industry who like seeing that thing and celebrate it. But does it actually reflect well for sales? No, it doesn't. The market speaks loudly, and the market says, hey, we're not interested in this. We just want a war game. And you guys are clearly going out of your way to piss us off. You're trying to, they did go out of their way to piss people off. They said that, well, if you don't like seeing women in video games, you don't buy our game. And it's sort of like cast everyone who wanted like a sort of like a semi-realistic World War II game as a misogynist, right? That's the thing that happened. And that clearly alienated a lot of the fans, the core fans, who just want to play the game because it's a war game. So I do think that, it's important to have representation, because, I mean, if you can fit representation in, why the hell not? It doesn't hurt you. It doesn't hurt anybody, right? It's cool to have many different interesting characters. And, sometimes you can tell really good stories like Horizon Zero Dawn or the original Tomb Raider. You can have main female characters, no big deal. But then the instant you try to force it in, like Battlefield 5, it backfires on you. Why not do it like Call of Duty Black Ops 4? Half the characters there are female. No one's complaining about it because it's just a good game. They don't shove their gender identity politics in your face. They're just like, oh yeah, those are badass women. Okay, cool. That's it.
Okay. Destiny.
I guess one of the things I don't understand is, like, why is it that just having a woman in a trailer is like shoving politics in somebody's faces? Why can't they just be in the trailer and be a woman?
I don't agree with that.
No, I don't think it's that's fine. If it's just a woman's whatever. The problem is they try to tout it as historically authentic. So wait. When people say, well, this is not historically authentic, there are no women wearing like.
Wait, when has a Battlefield game ever been like historically authentic?
That's what they claim for this one. Yeah, I mean,
wait,
I don't think they've ever been historically authentic, but that was what they were marketing on. Yeah.
I think the term is immersion.
And when people,
right? You want to be immersed into the history.
Immersion, yeah. I mean, like, I talked to a lot of people who are not gamers, and they were confused by why there was a woman on the cover of a World War II game. They're like, well, obviously women were in the war. They were Russian snipers. And here's the thing, that I talked to a lot of people about this, and they said that, and this is how I feel as well. It'd be okay if you had a Russian sniper in the game who was a woman, like maybe even a battalion of them. There was, in fact, a battalion of them, right? Finnish snipers, Russian snipers, half of them were women. No one would be opposed to that. But when you have a woman who's got like an arm that's like cybernetic, in real life, one of those arms that you see in Battlefield, they don't actually work. You can't actually grip things with it. They're just hooks, right? They're just prosthetic. They don't do anything. But in the trailer, it's like she's firing a gun with it, and it's like, what's going on here? I mean, clearly you're trying to virtue signal.
So this is always like, this is always really strange to me. As somebody that really enjoys guns, I enjoy shooting and it's really fun. All of the gunplay in Battlefield games is hysterically inaccurate. I mean, like when you eject a magazine, for instance, you can reload another mag without ever having to take the bullets out of the last one. There are a lot of guns that have clips and you can throw in a new clip and it just adds bullets to the current one, even though that's not possible. In a lot of Battlefield compilations, I personally don't fly jets, but I'm pretty sure you can't do a loop-de-loop in a jet, jump out of it, rocket launcher somebody, and then jump back into the jet. I don't think you can do that in real life. It seems like nobody has problems with all of these historical inaccuracies, or at least things that I assume to be historically inaccurate. Again, I'm not a historian, but when there's like a woman with a prosthetic that might have a little bit too much functionality, like why is this such a problem? I guess like my question is, and also like this idea about like, well, there are Russian snipers. I'm sure there was at least a few women that fought in combat roles on the Western Front. I mean, maybe not whole battalions, and it definitely wasn't anywhere near 50-50 or whatever, but like it only takes a couple. And even if I were to grant that extreme argument and say there were none, why does it matter? Like we make so many sacrifices in video games, and again, anybody that's ever played with real guns will tell you immediately that the gunplay in 99% of games outside of like fucking Arma is horrendously unrealistic, but that's okay. Nobody wants to sit there and fuck around with a magazine for 5 minutes before you're ready to you know, slap it in and go back into combat. Nobody wants to do shit like that. So if we make sacrifices like this all the time to make games more enjoyable and more playable, I don't know what the big deal is about having like a woman in a game that might make more women interested in playing the game. I don't see why that's a huge deal.
Well, it's not a huge deal for me because I'm not a major Battlefield fan. I'm always been more for Call of Duty, and there are tons and tons of women in Call of Duty. You play as them, and they kill people. It's fine, but that's what people are saying about Battlefield 5. I mean, I don't say I 100% agree with them, but they don't like the fact that it's historically. I wouldn't even say inaccurate, because obviously it's inaccurate. I mean, you can't really fly a jet in a battlefield like that, you know, like how you described. But at the same time, it's weird. It's jarring playing the game, and you know you're fighting on the front lines of Normandy or whatever the hell, and you hear a woman crying. You know, like women are getting stabbed, they're getting shot, and that's. Like, personally, when I tried to play Battlefield 5, that was the thing that sort of, like, knocked me out of it. I was like, okay, this isn't Call of Duty, first of all. It's supposed to be World War II.
Okay, wait. Okay.
In Normandy or
something. So you're on Normandy. You get shot 7 times. You take cover behind something. You regenerate all of your life instantly. You do a power slide over to the next piece of cover. You kill 35 German soldiers. You get killed once. You respawn, and then you replay that part. But then you hear a woman crying. It's like, oh, God, my immersion is broken. Does this really happen?
I think for a lot of people it does, yeah. It's weird. I don't know. I won't say they're sexist or anything, but it's the expectation of it. Maybe it's because we watch a lot of World War II movies. We watch Band of Brothers, you know, and there's very few women in those movies. You know, you see them in roles as like a nurse, a combat nurse or something, but never are they on the front line. The combat in those is also
way different as well, though. Like the combat in those movies is very, very different than what you see going on in Battlefield and Call of Duty.
Yeah, it's realistic.
Games. Yeah, well, at least in things like Band of Brothers.
No, it's a weird thing, right? It's like the suspension of disbelief. Like, you know, you can, like, when you watch a realistic movie, you never see the character take a shit, right? You never see him take a piss, but you kind of assume that that's what happens. So like when you're playing, I don't know if this is like the best example, but when you're playing Battlefield, certain things you can sort of like give it some leeway. You're like, yeah, okay, this is not realistic, but whatever. You know, this is just a thing. It's a game thing. But then when you hear other things, so it's a thematic thing. It's a bit like seeing maybe a guy ride in with a sword. You know, like say a guy rides in with a Team Fortress 2 style sword and shield, and he starts swinging at people. You're like, okay, well, this game's not realistic to begin with, but then having that dude that just kind of throws you in for a loop. Maybe it's like that, you know. There's an extent to which you accept what is unrealistic and what's not.
I feel like having a guy roll in with like a TF2 style sword and just having the skins of one of the characters and the voices be female, I feel like these are pretty extensively different things. I don't know. I guess it's just for games like this, I just don't see the big deal in swapping out a couple of textures if it gets more women and shit involved in games. I don't know. It just seems like an overwhelmingly positive thing to me. If I was playing like a hardcore, so I would be much more lenient in games like, say, Arma, because these are games that are literal fucking military sims, and these games go very fucking hard. Jesus Christ, Arma 3's engine is insane for how hard they go when they're trying to strive for like this authenticity. Maybe in games like that, I would totally buy it if fans were talking about realism and whatnot. But Battlefield games are incredibly fantastic fantastical. The gameplay is getting closer and closer to what Call of Duty always has been. You know, it's very fast, it's very quick. You carry around guns and you shoot instantly and everything. Like, I don't know, it just seems weird that these games are so far removed from any sort of historical element, save from the names of some places. But then all of a sudden, like, the characters all have to be male. What I'm basically getting at is it feels like the argument that it has to be historical, this argument seems a little facetious. It's not like the real argument being made. It seems like the actual argument is that we're just kind of uncomfortable still having women like in fighting related games. That's what it feels like to me, just because I just don't buy the historical argument at all.
Let me ask you a question, Ian.
Yeah, I mean,
on
with the
sort of on the same page. Do you think that women are over-sexualized in games today?
Japanese games maybe, yeah, but not American games, no.
You would agree with that, Destiny?
That's a really, really hard one. I think it's gotten what Ian said, like, games as of recent are the games over the past like 5 years, even just 5 years, have been much different than the games, you know, like 10 or 15 years ago. Talking about like over-sexualization is a really hard topic to go into. Like, I don't think that sexual characters are ever necessarily bad, but it seems like if it's done, I want to say like in a very strange sense, it kind of makes me wonder. So like a game that I really loved was Nier Automata. I don't know if anyone is familiar with this game, but it's like a Japanese RPG game.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Yeah, but for some reason, like the
she's
main
sexualized, but it's okay, right? It's like sort of it works. Yeah, I don't know. It
yeah.
doesn't feel cheap. It doesn't feel like fan service.
Oh, I don't know. I kind of felt the opposite on that one. I felt like everything in the game was like ultra super serious, but then for some reason, you know, there's like 15 different panty shots in the game, and it kind of felt a little weird. Like, that actually took me out of it a little bit, where I was like, I'm climbing a ladder, and if I angle the joystick wrong, like, I'm getting a huge shot full of like 2B ass. I don't know. It just felt like kind of strange. But if you're playing like Dead or Alive beach volleyball, or if you're playing like hyper fantastical games like, say, like League of Legends, where all the males are like hyper mascularized and all of the females are hyper feminized, so it's like in those cases, yeah, it's whatever, that's probably fine. But yeah.
Okay. Steve, you wanted to ask something?
Sure. How much consideration should these companies that produce these games have in regards to, one, the constituents of base players, the ones that actually buy the games, right? They're the ones that are going to be purchasing. That's the bottom line. But at the same time, we all recognize there's a lot of female gamers. As a matter of fact, they're some of the best gamers happen to be female. So if they're want to have, as you guys were arguing, you know, skins that are female, or females back in Germany way before that most of them would have been ever kind of militarized. What is the considerations that these companies should have to allow for these things and take them into account, even though, like, we agree it ruins some of the immersion, but is it really a big deal if the bottom line is who's buying this product?
Well, personally, I think that the developers should just make whatever it is they want to make, whether it caters to one group or another. It doesn't matter. It's up to the developer, right? If the developer wants to make it so that there are women in his game, by all means, do it. You know, if anyone doesn't want to buy it, then, well, they don't have to buy it. But the developer needs to recognize that if he's making like an original product, like something that is wholly original, 100% his, then yeah, he can do whatever he wants. But if he is catering to a franchise, one that's established, that has certain themes in it, and he wants to make it completely different, then that's a mistake, right? That's a company's failing for hiring this guy or for allowing him this much freedom. So I do think that, you know, there are some market considerations to be made. There cannot be like too much freedom because of the expectations. And, you know, it's like if you take Battlefield 5 or whatever, and you decide, yeah, I'm going to make this game 100% Call of Duty, this completely goes against what fans of Battlefield 5 are expecting, or Battlefield in general. And so they won't buy the game because it's too much like Call of Duty. And that is a problem with a lot of franchises, where they try to be like another type of game, a different game, and then they don't really succeed at it because they're not good at it. So there are considerations to be made. But I think that in terms of like politics and whether it's bringing in more women, the market, I mean, the data still needs to come in, but Battlefield 5 is not selling very well. It's selling at like less than half of what Battlefield 1, which is the previous game, sold. So I don't think that this whole thing really paid off for them. So it might not be a good idea after all.
Yeah. So this is a really, really hard question. What you're essentially asking is, do companies have a responsibility to public discourse, which is so fucking hard. So say, for instance, you have a market where you could double the sales of a game by being racially derogatory. And now you're asking the company, well, should you publish a game that you feel like is socially responsible or one that will maximize profit for the owners of your company? That's a really hard question to answer. Ethically or morally, I would like to say that you should, I think as a company, you should be exuding the values that you feel are important as a company. So if you're a company and literally your goal is like, we don't give a fuck about anything, we just want to make a fuck ton of money, well, in that case, you'd probably be making mobile games. But I mean, then go ahead and like do whatever you want. But I guess if you're of the mindset or the feeling that, well, hey, all of us exist in a society. At the end of the day, this is where we kind of make our beds. We are in a position where we can have a massive influence over society because media definitely does. And it creates a lot of feedback loops there as well. For instance, a lot of movies with lead female antagonists will probably create more women that are interested in watching movies with lead female antagonists, and that kind of feeds into itself. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I guess I can't, again, I would like to say that every company should push the values that it feels, it most identifies with. Obviously, I can't force anybody to do that, but that would kind of be my opinion. And then obviously, never at a detriment to the content, but yeah.
So would you a combination? Well, it's a combination there of the market, right? The demand and their own efficacy issues of the company making these things, right? Would you agree there's some kind of symbiosis between the two, and they have a line to walk? I'm not going to say there's a hard line of demarcation between them, because obviously, as you said, if they produce a video game that is completely off the rails, that is derogatory, racist, sexist, I mean, without question, then of course people are not going to buy that. As a matter of fact, there's going to be a backlash to that, I would imagine.
These days, yeah,
right?
sure.
So I think that, yeah, of course, and there should be, of course, there should be. So I think it's a fine line that they have to walk on that. Yeah, I would hope so as well.
We had a discussion. It was actually after you were on last time, Ian, in an after show. I believe Rags was. You weren't here for that, but I think Rags was, and there was a conversation that took place between Rags and someone else in the call, and it stemmed off of the question: should game developers or the people who develop games have full reign over their content, be able to make any type of game that they want without any type of pressure or censorship from the outside. So the example that was brought up was, what if a developer wanted to create a rape simulation game? Should that be something that should be able to go to market? And it stemmed off into several different and it went to several different rabbit holes, but it was a good conversation. So I want to see what your opinion is on that. If a company wanted to create that, should they be allowed to do so?
Well, they should be allowed to do so, but other companies, the platforms, Steam, PlayStation, Xbox Live, they are under no obligation to carry these products. So you deal with it, right? You make a trashy product, one that has that's like a rape simulation. You have to market it yourself, sell it on your own site. But don't be surprised when Steam says, no, we're not going to host this thing.
Okay. And what do you think, Destiny?
I mean, I'm pretty hard on this. This is a hard line. I mean, I would be the creation of any sort of art. I don't think you should ban somebody from being allowed to make something. That's a pretty hard no for me. And that you shouldn't be able to keep somebody from making something. But then, like Ian said, you obviously no store or anybody would be compelled to carry it or sell it. I think
when it comes to the freedom of...
I was going to say, just as somebody that studied art, I think it's very scary when you get into scenarios where you're trying to limit what kind of creation of art or whatever. That's very scary to me. Yeah. There you go.
Yes. The freedom of speech issue would be, and I'm agreeing with you here, anybody has a right to make any game they want. Steam has a right not to have it on their platform.
Yeah.
Would you agree
exactly.
with that? Okay.
I mean, it's the defense of ugly art, right? You can write anything you want. You can write a rape fiction about a real life person. You're allowed to do that, but don't be surprised when you stop getting jobs, you stop getting work, your publisher doesn't call you anymore because he thinks you're fucking creepy. Those are the social repercussions. But absolutely, you can do that. You can be Vox Day. Go ahead and be a complete racist. Say all the nasty things you want, but don't be surprised when no one wants to work with you.
So it seems like we're doing we're doing a lot of agreeing. So I'm just going to ask this question: what was it last time between the two that caused the fireworks? What was the issue at hand that created what we saw in that last debate?
Oh God.
Well, if Ian's
Dumpster
turned over,
fire.
remembers
you
it.
know what?
I do.
Against my better judgment, because I'm 99% sure that Ian is going to call me a pedophile at least one time after this conversation. Against my better judgment, I'll let Ian take the reins
I
on that
won't.
one
I
and
won't.
explain
I
it.
promise you, I won't. I promise you, I won't.
Okay.
Yeah, I won't.
So what was the issue at hand? What was the topic for that evening?
But Ian, you can go for it. Take it away, buddy.
Oh my God. I think you were basically defending yourself from some libelous claims that you're a pedophile, that you support ethical child porn, right? Am I right in saying that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. Okay. So there's a lot of memeing going on, and some people took it to the next level, and you had to defend yourself because people take it way too seriously. And having been on the receiving end of what you were on that day, like I've been there as well recently, right? I gotta say, man, like I fully apologize for partaking in that. That was a shit show. You didn't deserve that. You're obviously not a pedophile. You're not an ethical child porn supporter. You have these discussions. I would say that the discussions that you have on your channel are important, right? It's important to talk about free speech. And the instant you start, I don't mean you, but like in general, and people start saying that, oh, you're not allowed to say this because it makes you sound like you're defending a position that, that shouldn't be defended. I think that's disingenuous. People just want to shut you down when they make these claims. So yeah, man, like, it was my bad.
Can you real quick tell us what the hell ethical child porn is? And it's
Yeah, I'm
too, by
curious
the way,
myself.
I totally agree with you. We as a channel here, we talk about a lot of shit, right?
Sure.
It doesn't mean we actually
Yeah,
advocate
let's
for any of these
fucking sure.
positions,
Why not?
clearly.
Yeah, fucking let's do it. Sure, why not? Because everybody gets memed the fuck.
Let's do it.
So there's a guy called Amos E. Are you familiar with this guy?
Yes.
I am not. And
So
I don't think I want
Amos
to be at
E.
this
is a
point, so go
guy
ahead.
that advocates for the total removal of the age of consent, and he thinks that adults should be able to have non-damaging sexual relationships with children. So like you shouldn't be able to fuck them till their bodies explode, but you should be able to fuck around with them sexually.
That's a non sequitur.
Yeah. If you're 30 years old, you should be able to have a sexual relationship with a 1-year-old or 2-year-old person. Now
I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm done.
No, fuck it. No,
Holy
we're down here. So fuck it, okay? This is my fucking life, okay? So
Yeah.
I am of the opinion that informed consent is a cornerstone of what society is built on, that people need to be able to knowingly consent to things in order for society to function. So this will extend to things like a 13-year-old shouldn't be allowed to sign a contract that is financially binding, and a 2-year-old probably shouldn't be allowed to have a sexual relationship with a 30-year-old. I think these are pretty obvious things. Now, Amos E. was making his rounds through the skeptic community, and what I found when I watched these debates was that nobody had any fucking idea why we shouldn't be fucking kids. Most people were just saying things like, well, that's gross. Well, who the fuck cares? We do a lot of things that are gross. That's not a good reason to not fuck kids. Nobody knew the arguments for why informed consent was actually important. So I was like, okay, Amos, come on to my fucking show and let's have a good old conversation about this. And we had a long conversation about it. Philosophically, I think I established that his position was insane. So for instance, I got him to agree that if 100 people walked into a room and 90 of them were made millionaires and 10 of them had their arms removed, that would be ethical, even if nobody knew what was going to happen going in. I think I got him to agree to a lot of crazy things. I felt comfortable. But in the course of this 2.5 hour argument where I was arguing in the affirmative for age of consent, Amos posed a question to me where he said, do you think there's ever a case where child pornography can be used ethically? And a fan of mine had emailed me a ton of research like 2 weeks earlier saying that in some clinical trials or in some places, what was theorized was that because if you look at countries where certain types of porn is made available and sex crimes fall, that it's possible to take child pornography that's already been produced and as part of therapy get a pedophile to not rape children. That was the argument. And I said, if you could actually demonstrate this in an ethical way, and I don't even know if this would pass like an ethics review, but if you could demonstrate in some way that previously produced child porn could be used to make it so that pedophiles aren't raping kids, as somebody that's generally in favor of kids not getting raped, this is something that I would probably be okay with, assuming that it passes all of the obvious fucking checks. So for instance, we're not making new child porn. We're not just bringing up like fucking random shit. Like there's a whole bunch of shit you'd have to go through to make this work. And that was my position on it. And that gets spun out. So now everywhere I go, it gets spun out to like, oh, Destiny just wants to like rape kids and give all the porn to fucking pedophiles, which is obviously fucking stupid. But that's where that whole fucking meme comes from.
No, I can actually see your argument with that, believe it or not.
Sure. And again, to be clear, to catch the 50 million nuances.
Things all the time that
to catch all the nuances.
I'm not
no,
saying I'm
I don't
agreeing
think
with
that.
you.
I don't think new
Myself
child porn
included,
should be
we were-
made. I don't even know if this idea would work.
yeah.
If it doesn't reduce the number of pedophiles raping kids, it's obviously fucking horrible. I wouldn't want to traumatize old people by calling them and saying, "Hey, remember when you got raped as a kid? Can we use that video to show to a bunch of kitty jerkers to fucking jerk off to?" I don't think it should be right. There's a million different hoops you'd have to jump through, and realistically, I don't know if something like this would ever pass any
Right.
sort of reasonable ethics review. But that was like, but I was just spitballing. Like, this is like one case where I could hypothetically.
It's
see
a
it being-
hypothetical, right? It's
Yeah.
like if. It's like if this actually works, then why the fuck not? I mean, I can't disagree with that either. So
What about this? Though? What about this? Though? This would take a lot of that off the table.
Mhm.
CGI. If they made CGI child porn for those people, that it may theoretically help. Again, their efficacy concerns here.
Well,
are
we don't
immense,
have to
and
talk
plus you would have to
hypotheticals.
see
We
a
could
whole
talk.
bunch of data
We could talk about
stuff.
Lolicon, right? Which is essentially animated child porn, right? So for me, I'll get here's my
I'm not
here-
into anime, so I don't know even.
Sure. So here will be my super edgy take. I am very fucking uncomfortable limiting any form of art, and I feel very strongly about that. I also don't see that there is a damage caused by lolicon. I don't like those people in my community. I sure as fuck don't host discussions or those types of people. Like, that shit is all banned from any fucking platform that I'm a part of. But I mean, as long as those guys aren't raping actual fucking kids, at the end of the day, I don't give a fuck if you jerk off to some fucking drawn anime shit, as long as you're not fucking with real children and it's not causing people to want to fuck real children. So, yeah.
That would be my question: is if something like that, using either old child porn or the CGI child porn, if that would kind of fuel their need to continue to pursue that, you know, instead, would it quail it, or would it drive people to want, you know, something more? Because when you do drugs,
we need the data for that.
you're constantly chasing that dragon.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
the research that was emailed to me, and this is a collection of studies, and I'm sure there's a lot of people that study it, but it seems like generally in countries where pornographic material was made unavailable, so illegal or treated as contraband, that in these countries, when those bans were reversed and people were consuming more pornographic content, the amount of sex crimes, including sex crimes against children, seemed to drop. That's what the empirical data said. Now, there could be other effect modifiers or confounding factors that explain that make it not necessarily related to the pornography, or maybe the releasing that pornography was a cause in itself, or maybe there could be, but that's just the empirical stuff that I was shown. I don't actually know what the established psychological position is on that right now, for if does viewing pornographic material make you less likely to commit a sex crime, or does viewing lolicon make you less likely to sexually assault children. I don't know what the answer to that is.
Okay, Steve.
Yeah, well, I was just going to have a little addendum on that again, when we start talking about a lot of this stuff, that just because somebody talks about this stuff, and I didn't watch your guys' discussion on this. I've seen other guys. You had one discussion, and all it was a bunch of yelling. So I don't know what the hell the actual argument was.
Mm-hmm.
But just because somebody talks about these things on their channel doesn't necessarily mean a person is advocating for this particular position, because I don't know one way or another if Destiny advocates for what is called ethical child porn or not. I don't think it really matters what he does or not. He's still completely able to talk about the topic as a subject and not take a position either way. And again, without knowing more about it, without knowing the efficacy studies, without knowing if it has efficacy to the fact, will it change these people's predilection to having, you know, affinities toward children? Who knows? I have no freaking idea how any of that would work. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But I really do have to agree that when you argue to somebody that, oh, you're talking about this, therefore you're advocating this position, that doesn't necessarily follow. And we have that happen quite frequently on this channel, obviously.
Let's switch gears then and see if we can't continue to find a place where we disagree. Let's go into to cultural appropriation. Like, for example, Jennifer Lawrence was just in the news for her clothing line, and then you have, like, for Halloween, you had those costumes, like for The Handmaid's Tale, that were recalled because it was objectifying women. And you know, and that's a fake. That's a fantasy. That's a fantasy series. So, what are your views on that? Do you think we take it too far? Do you think it's just right? Do you think the companies should have to recall stuff like that, and celebrities like Jennifer Lawrence should have to come out and apologize for creating a clothing line that's cultured and that she's not a part of, a culture that she's not a part of? Do you think that's
Well,
the way
the
it should
issue
be?
the issue of cultural appropriation, right? So I'll go first, right? So the issue of cultural appropriation is people getting offended on behalf of other people. That's like the baseline for it, right? They're saying, oh, a white girl, a 17-year-old white girl shouldn't be allowed to wear a Cheong Sam, right, which is a Chinese traditional dress, because she's white. She's not Chinese, and my culture is not your fucking prom dress. Right? That was the infamous tweet that made the rounds to get I think 1 million retweets or some nonsense. It turns out like Chinese people are okay with it. You know, I'm in Malaysia here, and I'm okay with it. Everyone around here, it was actually in the news here, and we're like, why the hell are these crazy Americans getting offended because someone wore a traditional dress? And it's not even like traditional in the sense that it was around 1,000 years ago. It was traditional in the sense that it was made like in the 1920s. It was a fusion of Italian design, Italian women's clothing, and traditional Chinese clothing made to emphasize the form, the physique of a woman, right? That was the whole point of it, because women back in the day, Chinese culture was very conservative, and they were becoming more progressive, so they were showing off more skin. That's where that dress comes from. And for this guy to say that my culture is not your fucking prom dress, I mean, who the hell is this guy? Who made him the spokesperson for Chinese people? And when you go to places like Yale or Harvard and they get mad about Halloween costumes, they're suddenly declaring themselves to be like the moral arbiters of what is allowed and what isn't. Like, this costume is problematic. You can't wear this. You can't dress this way because it might offend somebody. I mean, who are they offending, actually? No one that I know is speaking up about this Chinese prom dress. It's just this one guy, and everyone acts like it's this big deal that somehow she's a racist because she wore this dress. And it just gets taken to this absurd, obscene level where no discussion is allowed. Like, no one's even allowed to ask, why is this okay? And they're like, well, if you have to ask that question, you're a racist. That's usually the response. Is cultural appropriation? I mean, what is cultural appropriation? Is eating sushi made from a chef who's not Japanese? Maybe he's a Korean chef. Maybe he's a white chef, right? Is that cultural appropriation? I mean, where do we draw the line? I mean, you had Lena Dunham say that eating sushi cooked at cafeterias, that was a racist thing, that was cultural appropriation, we need to stop doing it. That's Lena Dunham, and obviously most people disagree with her because that's stupid. So where do we draw the line? I mean, do we have to stop eating fried chicken, soul food, because it's cultural appropriating the southern black people? I mean, where do we draw the line here?
Good question. Where do we draw the line, Destiny?
So, let's see. Parts of this I agree with, parts of this I don't agree with. I don't think there's anything wrong. I hear the meme a lot on people getting offended on behalf of other people. I think it's totally fine to get offended on behalf of other people. If somebody comes out and they start saying some super crazy dumbass shit that doesn't necessarily apply to me, I'll get offended for it, sure, if it's something that is contrary to my value system. So for instance, if somebody were to come out and say, I think the best thing that we can do for the United States would be to just disintegrate all the poor people because we would increase the standards of living for a lot of people and we wouldn't have to worry about it. I mean, I'll get offended for that. I'm not a poor person, but I'll get offended on behalf of those people because it's contrary to my personal value system. That being said, my background for college was in music. The entire concept of cultural appropriation in terms of stealing things from other cultures and using it as part of your own is hilariously fucking stupid. There is no original culture. Everything is derivative of everything else. Our culture has been constantly evolving and stealing and borrowing and giving and doing things from other cultures for the past 10,000 years. The idea that this is something that should be prevented is just fucking stupid. There are times where people call things cultural appropriation, where I can get on board with it, but it's usually, I wouldn't call it, I would just call it being racist. So like, for instance, like, like, should you have, is it a baseball team called the Redskins? Like, or is this
the Redskins? Yeah,
football team.
Washington Redskins.
Yeah, like,
football team.
Football. Sorry, I don't do NFL.
Yeah, that's 100% racist.
Yeah. So like, Chiefs? Yeah. So like, yeah. Oh yeah, like the Kansas City Chiefs. Yeah, right.
Oh, Chiefs. Yeah.
Like, are these things that are probably racist? Sure, but like, is this cultural appropriation? I don't think this is cultural appropriation. Like a guy walking around with like a sombrero being like, hey, oh yeah, hi, or whatever, doing like some dumbass Mexican stereotype, like, but I don't think that's cultural appropriation. I think that's just like fucking, that's just people being fucking racist. I don't think there is a special qualification for that. But like, if some white girl wants to host like a fucking yoga class or something for people at a college, there's not a fucking problem with that. Or if somebody sees some cool dress or some cool music that is Chinese or Japanese and they want to get a fucking tattoo of it or some shit, or a white guy wants to wear fucking dreadlocks, or black people want to eat mayonnaise, like fucking whatever people want to fucking do, stealing from other cultures, who the fuck cares? Like, that's what we do at the end of the day anyway. Like, I don't see why people get so bent up. But to be clear too, though, I don't see that many big people really get bent out of shape about the cultural appropriation. It always just seems to be like random people on Twitter that start to like cause a fuss about it.
Let me go a little bit deeper here then. Let's say someone a white person wanted to for Halloween dress up as Bob Marley and wanted to wear blackface. Is that a line that shouldn't be crossed, or is that okay to do?
I mean, he would look like an asshole for doing that, but I don't think he would be racist. Let's say maybe he's a fan of Bob Marley, you know? Is he a racist? I mean, here's the thing. Like, you can dress up as, say, a black guy can dress up as Elvis Presley, right? You have Elvis Presley impersonators who are not white people, right? And they do that. Are they being racist? Probably not. You know, they're not. So why is it suddenly racist when a white guy, so a random white guy doesn't have any power, maybe he's broke, he's poor as hell, he likes to smoke weed, he dresses up as Bob Marley? Why is that racist? You know, like, you don't even have to do the whole blackface thing. I think most people realize that doing the blackface thing is a bit disrespectful, because it's like you're taking the essence of Bob Marley, which is his music, which is his style, his fashion, his look, and you're sort of like saying, oh, it's because he's black, right? So I don't think a guy should be doing that, like doing the blackface thing, but dressing up in his outfit should be okay. You know, you can have black kids dress up as a Superman, and Superman isn't black, right? Just like you can have white kids dress up in Black Panther. That should be okay. You know, he's wearing a suit. Like, Marvel itself had to put out a statement saying that it's okay. Yes, it's okay if you're white and you are, you know, and you want to dress your kid up in Black Panther. That's fine. You know, that's not racist. We totally encourage it, because like, what you are under that suit, under that mask, it doesn't fucking matter. That's the whole point of superheroes.
Okay. Destiny?
Like, on its face, I don't think that blackface or whiteface, when Chappelle does it, I don't think that these are necessarily intrinsically wrong, but anything that we do in society, whether we like it or not, is always going to fit into kind of a cultural context. Unfortunately, because of the history, if like a white person walking around in blackface saying, well, I just wanted to dress up as like my favorite kind of like black musician, would kind of be like me walking around, you know, a neighborhood with a bunch of swastikas saying, well, you know, actually a long time ago, these were like Buddhist symbols. You can see they're actually backwards, and I'm not actually being hateful at all. You know, like, I think that you kind of have to take into account the context that everything sits in. And, you know, blackface was pretty, you know, the whole reason why blackface was created was, you know, for like the early minstrel shows and shit, like in the 1800s and whatnot, when you had people that were pretty much using these types of things to spread racial stereotypes and whatnot. And that was the whole purpose of it. And it's kind of hard to divorce current blackface from prior blackface when we're still dealing with a lot of racial issues in the United States. So, I mean, if somebody really wanted to do it, I mean, I don't think that would necessarily make them racist, but man, it seems like a really bad idea to do it. It seems like it's probably better to just not do that today, just because of the kind of the historical and cultural context that sits in right now.
Okay, Steve, you said you had a follow up, and then I have one final area we can try to. But it sounds like to me you two don't really disagree too much on things.
We'll find something.
Here.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of it is looked over as the intent when it comes to wanting to hurt somebody, to want to point out discrepancies between them. They want to point out that one group happens to be different in some kind of way than another. And that's when so people should take offense. Things like the redskin, that was not originally intended to be a divisive word. That actually was slang, and actually was the Sioux Indians that used that. One of them actually had said, I am a redskin, but what I say is true. So it all depends on what you want to tell to a person when you're saying some of these words. Same thing with dressing up. And I agree, dressing up like Bob Marley, if you're white, black, green, purple, who the hell matters? If you're paying homage to them, it's not disrespectful, it's not insulting, and it's certainly not something that we consider, generally speaking, to be offensive, right? I mean, if you're honoring somebody. So I think intent really has to be a huge portion of this. And I happen to say, even when you said something that really stood out to me about that, if you say something is offensive on behalf of another culture, that I agree with Destiny, people have a right to do that, but you have to take into account, would this normally be offensive to the people in that culture? Most people I know in certain cultures, they're not going to give a shit whether you dress up like, you know, in like a Hispanic or if Hawaiian. Most of them don't care. So that's when it's like, why are you taking offense to something on behalf of this culture?
Yeah.
If the vast majority of this culture couldn't give a shit either way. Because as Destiny pointed out,
to clarify, you know,
we're all appropriating
yeah.
cultures. Welcome to the reality.
Yeah, right.
Well, I mean, like,
to clarify,
Redskin,
you know, I think
specific-
it's okay. Sorry.
No, go for it.
I'll go first. All right. To clarify, I do think it's okay and it's perfectly normal to be offended on behalf of other people. So what I meant was to say that people who run out of things to complain about, they just want to look for new things to get offended by. And it's, cultural appropriation is an easy thing to get offended by. You just see someone, white guy dreadlocks, oh, boom, you're offended. You got a moral crusade you can go on. So that's all I meant. But obviously, if someone's doing something like really heinous, of course I can be offended on behalf of the people he's doing it to. I don't have to be those people to be affected by, I don't have to be a Jewish person to be offended by anti-Semitism. It offends me greatly, right? And I speak out against it. So, yeah.
Okay, and Destiny, you were trying to say something there a second ago.
Yeah, I don't know. I was under the impression that that Redskin was pretty racially loaded. I feel like if I should fucking look it up. I looked this up at one point in time, and I thought that around the 1800s, 1900s, that this term started to become it was pretty much used as a pejorative, and I mean understandably so. If I called Ian a yellow skin, or if I called a black friend a black skin, it seems like you're trying to other the person pretty hard with that terminology. In a Native American is a red skin. I don't know, just I mean, if you have a friend or whatever, that's cool. I would be really uncomfortable having a team called that thing, though. That seems like a kind of a strange. Yeah. If I went to fucking India or some shit, and then they all called me "What's up, white skin" or something, that would probably feel pretty fucking strange to me. But I don't know.
So let's dive into this. And Steve, I know we said we wouldn't go into this area again after what happened last time, but what about non-binary gender Jordan Peterson brought up a point that the society shouldn't be asked to refer to people as words that make them feel uncomfortable, like ZMZ or those sort of things that some people today are asking people to refer to them as. What are your views on how to either one, identify that they want to be, they want to be referred to as something else, and two, using those specific pronouns that they are requesting that you use?
Right. The vast majority of people in this world are not going to identify themselves as Zim, Z, Zer, Bunself, whatever. Right. So the idea that literally everybody should cater to the small minority of people, very, very small minority of people, not even like a sizable chunk. Right. Most transgender people identify as he or she. And, I think most people are okay with calling them that, unless they're they want to be transphobic or something, right? They hate trans people and you don't want to identify them as you don't want to call Caitlyn Jenner she because they're an asshole, right? That's a thing some people do. I don't agree with that. I think that's just rude. That's just rude behavior. Although I don't think it should be legislated either. That being said, the whole Zimzy is Zer, whatever, that is basically an imposition. You have a small group of people from Tumblr or whatever, maybe Twitter, who are telling you that you need to memorize their Zimzy pronouns, otherwise you're a bigot. I mean, I don't think I'm a bigot. I don't think anybody's a bigot for not memorizing these terms. And maybe, if you were their friend, then maybe you might respect it. But I don't think that even they take it seriously. Because, I mean, who comes up with this? Who comes up, and thinks, I'm actually I'm a bunny. I'm a bun self. You will refer to me as bun self. I won't even say me. You will refer to bun as bun self. It's like, come on, dude. You're not some Her Majesty. I'm not going to call you that. No one should be forced to do that, I don't think. It's absurd. It's an imposition.
Okay. And what are your thoughts, Destiny?
I really, I don't see hardly anybody credible pushing Z's or whatever. I've just never seen this much before. The way that we refer to people in terms of pronouns and names is always done generally at the other person's behest. I mean, we call people names that they prefer to be called. If somebody has a different set of pronouns, I don't know. I've never seen the big deal. If you want to be called Zer, I'm probably not going to. I'm probably just going to refer to you as they, because it's a convenient catch-all, and then just be done with it. But I don't know. I've never understood why people get so fucking ass pained about anything related to the gender stuff. I mean, it's we can dive into the social construct of gender.
Well,
and whatnot,
it's so funny you mentioned that, Destiny, because just prior to this, we were talking about intersectionality, and I think a lot of it stems from things like standpoint feminist theory and intersectionality and the narrative of persecution versus privilege. And it's kind of funny that we segued into that, because as you're exactly right, people are, this is a small margin of people that are pushing for very specific things. And as Ian puts out, as a society, you don't usually cater to a small portion. We have a society, we have a collective understanding. These are how most of these words are used. If you differentiate from that or do you want to deviate, that's fine among your local groups, but you can't impose that upon society as a whole in a general sense. Would you agree?
No, not at all. I think we do sometimes. I think you have to be very careful. I mean, like, look at the existence of the Senate. I mean, if you want to talk about a small number of people that can make very fucking large decisions about the course of our nation, yeah, you only have to look at half of our legislative body in the U.S. to see that we absolutely do that in the U.S. We also have different types of protections in place for certain minorities. You can't discriminate against somebody's veteran status. That's a small percentage of the population. You can't discriminate against somebody for their race. That could be small percentages. Like, yeah, I don't know. I've never been so invested in these topics. If somebody had like a specific pronoun they wanted to be called, I mean, all of this is like is very socially constructed. It's very related to language. If you want to be called like a certain zer or zay or whatever, as long as I can remember it, I'd probably do it. I just don't see the big deal. I do the same for names all the time. If somebody comes up to me and they're like, hey, what's your name? And they're like Jiang Zhang Jia or whatever. I'm like, oh, I wouldn't say like that's a really fucking stupid name. I'm just gonna call you John. Like I would never say that. I'd be like, I'll make my best effort to call you whatever you want to be called, and then we'll go on from there. It doesn't seem like it impacts me that greatly.
Okay. Last area of topic that I can think that we can try to attempt to find some disagreement here. Is Trump a good president? Is Trump a good president?
Wait, real quick. I'm sorry. Can I clear? Because I see a couple people in chat are kind of confused by me. So when I talk about in the Senate, in the United States Senate, every single state in the United States has 2 elected representatives that go to the Senate. We've got the House of Representatives. We got the Senate. So in the Senate, even very small states will have as much say as very large states. Yes. And some people are upset because a person in California might say, well, why does some fucker in Arkansas get as much say in me in Senate votes? Or not as much say, but like 38 times as much say as I do, because there's so much more of us than there are them. That's what I was referring to there. Sorry. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, and what I was referring to isn't overarching, right? There are obviously exclusionary things to it, such as in the Senate. I fully agree, and I think that it should be set up that way. The House is a little bit different, obviously, but the Senate, yeah, equal representation for each state, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
all right. Roughly. So, Ian, is Trump a decent president?
It depends on which policy. Is he good on? I don't know. I mean,
overall,
what policy? Overall.
I'll do it.
Your overall
I say overall, Trump has been garbage on pretty much every single thing he has done. I would struggle to find a single positive policy. I would struggle for anybody to find me a single positive change that Trump has enacted for this country.
Now we're talking. Okay, give me one of those policies.
That's subtle, Destiny. You want it? You're a little reserved on that. Tell us how you really feel.
Ian, give me a policy that he's done well on.
That he's done well on. Well, he's done some things not bad on, I would say, like immigration. That's the thing. Even among the MAGA groups, they're like, he's not hard enough on immigration, right? They'll say he's not hard enough on immigration, that he's not hard enough on lowering taxes. And then on the other side, it's like, well, he's too hard on this. So, it depends on who you ask. But for me personally, I mean, I'm not American, so I'm not like super invested in what Trump does. But I can see that he is creating a sort of like a nationalistic pride among at least a certain group of people. But it's causing division to everybody else because people feel like they're embarrassed by President Trump. So, there's pros and cons. And I think you guys being Americans are better equipped to talk about it. And Destiny, maybe you can tell us what you hate exactly about President Trump. Like, can you name like one policy they did that is like really bad that maybe I wouldn't even disagree with?
Sure. Tariffs are absolutely fucked. Oh, yeah. Sorry. Oh, we could do this for 2 hours. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
I just want to ask one follow-up. Just a yes or no, Ian. Do you think that Trump is a better president than Hillary would have been?
I don't know. I can't say. I mean, Hillary is one thing that she would have probably caused maybe a war in Syria, like actually a ground war, right? Because she's super hard on that before the election. She was super hard on that whole thing. So she might have actually started a proper war, and maybe that's a bad thing. But for everything else, I can't really say. I mean, she's not a bad leader. I mean, she knows what she's doing. She's a fucking veteran. She's good at that. She's just bad at promoting herself because she's not very likable. That's the thing. So maybe her decisions wouldn't be very popular, but then again, neither is Trump. So I don't know. I honestly don't know.
Yeah. All right, Destiny, what's give him something
Where do you want to start?
that he can agree with anywhere. Surprise me.
Sure, we can bring up immigration. I think the immigration stuff has been a shit show for everybody involved. The whole banning of Muslims from 7 somewhat arbitrary countries. I don't know where that's standing right now. Didn't they rechange the countries, and is that still going through the Supreme Court now after the change? That whole shit show was
I believe it is.
that caused a lot of fucking problems with people that were promised visas from certain countries that didn't get them as a result of intelligence work that they did for the United States as informants and whatnot. It caused obviously a great shit show amongst America and the rest of the world for people that thought that we were fucking up our immigration policy in the countries that we have relationships with. A lot of people thought it was hypocritical because we left countries like Saudi Arabia off the list, who, that's where 11 of the 9/11 bombers and shit came from. I mean, what else on immigration? The child detention centers, those were horrible for everybody. Even that played poorly even with Republican media. Trump was on news one day saying that was a Democrat policy that they couldn't do anything about, and the press was so bad 2 days later he rescinded that shit by executive action. Like, that's how bad that was. We just got a report 2 days ago, I think, that came out, the autopsy of that transgender lady that was fucking beat to death, or was rather beaten up multiple times and then left to shit and vomit herself to death in some cell for 3 days in one of the in one of the private detention centers referred to from ICE, from our Immigration and Customs Enforcement. We've got Trump being on record saying that kids that throw rocks or whatever at people over walls are going to get mowed down with AK-47, or with, I guess it's M14s we use. Like, fuck. Like, I don't even know where to go. Like, fucking our immigration shit has been a fucking disaster. Trump's rhetoric on this is fucking horrible. And there have been so many different issues that have come up in the United States. We still don't have any real comprehensive immigration reform. The best immigrants that we have, the people that were here under DACA, are being attacked and possibly getting ready to be thrown out by Trump, depending on where the courts stand on DACA. I think that's currently being challenged right now. These are people that are tax-paying U.S. citizens that have been given tax ID numbers, that don't commit crimes, and that pay a fee every year or two to the United States to live here legally and have already been educated by us. Like, I don't even know. Fuck. I mean, like, I don't understand how Trump has done anything positive for immigration to the United States. Sorry.
What do we do about the situation that's at the border now with the caravan that comes through Destiny? What's your ideas for how that should be handled?
I don't know. I mean, if you're here from refugee on a certain country, don't those normally go through the UN? I don't know how it normally works along our border to the south. I mean, if there's a way to vet people responsibly and bring them in, I mean, the United States has some of the toughest vetting in the world, if not the toughest vetting in the world. So, I mean, if there's a way to bring them in responsibly, I mean, in general, I'm probably in favor of that. Unemployment in the United States is dangerously fucking low right now. We could probably use the workers if they want to come and do it. Immigration in general to this country seems to be pretty positive. We seem to have a really good track record with refugees. I think we've taken like around 880,000 of them, and only one has ever been persecuted for terrorist-related things, and that was something that the FBI set up. The guys in, was it Tennessee, where they were trying to get arms shipped to people in Iraq or something? I don't remember, but it was like an FBI sting, and they basically got these guys and fooled them and fucked them up. So I mean,
Typical
like, I think
FBI.
What? Yeah. So yes, I mean, I think
Typical
we do.
FBI. They're like framing people.
Well, no, I mean, I don't think they framed them. I mean, they got them. But
Okay,
Saigon.
What about the use of tear gas at the border? As somebody who's ex-military, I can speak on this. I have actually been through a tear gas chamber. It's not fun. It is one of the most excruciating things you will go through, because literally your eyes are blinded. Your mucus falls out. Feels like your brain is literally falling through your nose.
Mm-hmm.
It is not fun to use that kind of thing on children. I find to be egregious personally. It's not a means for crowd control. Tear gas, in my opinion, is a form of weaponry. But that's only because of my military experience. What do you guys think about that when they fire tear gas over the borders to try to either disperse them?
It's fucked up is what it is. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, if people...
I mean, tear gas, it's the argument being made that to stop riots, right? Because some of them were rioting. Just happened to... The issue is that if you use that on grown adults and they are rioting, then, there's arguable good use of force there. The issue is that these, from what I understand, the people throwing the stones, say the agitators, they put kids and women in front so that they would get gassed, like for the optics, right? So they did that on purpose. So, I mean, I don't think they should have used gas the instant they saw that there's women and children there, but how else would you control that situation?
Yeah, I mean, like, if you're using, like, women and children as fucking shields, I mean, I don't know if the responsibility falls on the U.S. there for gassing people. I'm going based on reports that I saw that it seemed like that some of those ports that were shut down was because there were genuinely people, like, charging and jumping the fences. That's what I saw. I think there were a couple immigration people that were actually injured from that. I would have to go and double-check those stories. But, I mean, like, yeah, I mean, I don't like our immigration policy right now, for a variety of reasons, but I mean, if this is what's on the books right now, I mean, you have to defend your ports. I mean, you can't just let people overrun it. So I mean, yeah, tear gas is generally a non-lethal way to do it.
Destiny, do you think that that Trump will secure another victory in 2020?
That it's impossible to say. It's going to depend on what happens between now and then. Like any type of like a big terrorist attack. I would say that fascism, or at the very least authoritarianism, largely thrives on fear. And I think Trump is pretty avowedly at least authoritarian, if not full on fascist. So I mean, like these types of fear mongering things amongst the people that really get people riled up and scared and afraid that their country is going to be destroyed or whatever, right? This plays into Trump's rhetoric pretty handily. So like a big terrorist attack, I think, would cause people to move more in that direction. So like something big like that could happen. Some big swing in the stock market could cause people to lose faith in Trump or gain a lot of faith in Trump. Although I don't know what the stock market doing well has to do with the average fucking American. I don't know. Like there's so many things. The problem is that there's just so many things that can happen that would cause a swing one way or the other. That, the Democrats could put up some real fucking dumb person as their candidate. It's really fucking hard to say.
That's my worry.
That's
Do we have
anybody
now that we could see as somebody that's a contender? Like that's the issue for me, is that there doesn't seem to be anybody that you can point to and say that's the clear person that we want leading the the Democratic Party.
I think if you ask a lot of people, and this is something I'm inclined to agree with, Joe Biden could be a good contender.
Oh yeah, well I agree with that.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
Yeah, I agree with that as well, actually. But the DNC has
he's down to earth, right? He's down to earth. He's normal. He's someone you can relate to. He's like the poorest man in Congress. Or at least he was back when he was in Congress. This is a guy who I think he's the everyman, but he's not a Republican, right? But he's got some conservative policies, a lot of moderate policies. I mean, he's a guy who's like basically in the middle. That I think that you'd be hard pressed to find someone who like really hates him. Like, I mean, what do people go at him with? They're like, oh yeah, he's got those creepy photos where he's like, holding the shoulders of women. Like that's the only thing I've seen put out against him, and maybe some stuff that he said in like the 1990s when he was like more hardline conservative Democrat, right? But now though, I mean, any of his current positions, I can't even disagree with them. I don't think anyone can really disagree with them. So he might be the best contender. Unfortunately, you might have some situation where people in the DNC are like, well, we prefer Elizabeth Warren, She's a woman and is more progressive. We don't want a white man. That could be an issue. So that's the only thing, really. I mean, it's up to them if they want to win or if they want to lose on identity politics.
Yeah, DNC could either win it or piss it away. It's up to them. But two last questions, because we are running a little late on time. One first, I already know Destiny's answer to this probably, but this is a personal question to me. Do you think Trump is an intelligent man?
For me,
the reason I'm asking
I do think that
I actually had a friend
somewhat intelligent
that
to become a billionaire.
No. Well, he had a
you have to be
loan from his dad. I mean, he came from
I know,
affluent.
but still,
he had a what from his dad? Wait, what did you just say? He had a what from his dad? Somebody said he had something from his dad.
Didn't he start off like $40 million?
Yeah, okay,
$1 million.
Some people say he started off with $1 million. Yeah, some people say $1 million. That's fucking bullshit. First of all, the non-monetary advantages that he inherited, so not even including the business, but the fact that he was born where he was, with the father that he had, with the connections that he was established with his whole life, that's worth more than any physical dollars that he inherited. And then on top of that, inheriting the tens of millions of dollars that his dad's business was worth, that huge story that came out about tax fraud that was committed between his family and everything, like he had way more than just $1 million starting out. He likes to present it that way, but yeah, sorry.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, no, he had a leg up. Last thing I read was about 40 million, if all things considered. And again, some of them don't have a monetary thing you can actually, look into. The fact that he came from an affluent condition,
I do think that
he can't put a price on that. But I think he's smart though. I mean, he has a very limited vocabulary. His rhetoric is off the charts.
I mean, doesn't matter, does it? He's good with the base though. I mean, that's like look at Sarah Palin. I mean, is she actually really dumb?
Yes.
Like he has a lot of dumb people that follow him. Let's be realistic.
She's not. Here's the thing. If you actually watch Sarah Palin, before she decided to run for VP, she's actually really well spoken. She's really smart. It's just that she puts that folksy thing on. She puts a folksy thing on. It's a ruse. It's optics.
Really?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a facade. But for Trump, I don't think that's a facade. Trump is just being Trump, and that's why he wins. He wins on the power of celebrity. Right? He wins because he is who he is. And I don't think that he's stupid because he's continuing to win that way. I mean, he became the president after all. It wouldn't, if he was dumb, it wouldn't work. If he was dumb, he would be like one of those people who gets like $1 million and then just pisses it all away. He's a guy who can actually he takes what he has and he plays to his strengths.
He's been bankrupt 4 times.
I mean, does
or
yeah, but then he came back up. Yeah, he came back up. So it doesn't really matter. I mean,
I'm really curious.
Every successful person.
I am curious. Well, I think a lot of it is he does hire successful people. He puts people around him that are intelligent, at least in business. In the White House, not so much, maybe. But what is the advantage for Sarah Sanders too? Yeah, like Sanders. She's got to be hating her job. She has probably the worst job.
You can tell she do. She hasn't smiled since November in 2016.
Like she hates.
That's a fact.
Yeah. But I'm just kind of curious. What is Huckabee's? Oh, no, I'm Huckabee. I'm sorry. That's because it's her dad. What is Sarah Palin's advantage of putting on this facade of this Southern hick that isn't very intelligent?
She's relatable to. She's relatable in a red to a lot of. You've got a lot of people in rural areas in Alaska, right? A lot of rural areas in Alaska who are, I'm not going to say they're uneducated. I'm not going to say they're stupid. I don't think they are, and I think it's very unfair for people living on the coast to say, "Oh, those people are fucking dumb," right? But she's down to earth. When she puts on the whole folksy thing, she's someone relatable. She's like your aunt who brings over some casserole. That's the role that she plays. But when she was running for governor, she was well spoken. When she was in like in Anchorage, where it's more metropolitan and stuff, the way that she was speaking was like with a regular like a standard American accent, not the Canadian accent, and not Canadian accent. I mean Alaskan accent, and she was, well spoken. She knew her arguments and everything. She didn't pretend to be stupid. But the whole, in fact, it's quite disrespectful. Like if I were a rural Alaskan and I was watching her and I saw both sides, it'd be actually kind of insulted because it's obvious she's pandering to me. So it's irritating when I see politicians do that. They all do it. Like Obama actually does that. He goes to the South and he starts speaking a Southern drawl. It's kind of weird.
So I haven't heard Obama do this. I don't know if that's necessarily true. I don't think Palin was made fun of because of her accent. I think she was made fun of because she legitimately said some of the dumbest fucking things that have ever been said before. She was a pick out of nowhere, and she was way out of her fucking depth. I mean, like I think back to things like on 60 Minutes where she was asked what newspapers or magazines she read, and she said she'd read, she reads a lot about it, and when she was pushed to name a single one, she said all of them. Like Sarah Palin did not do herself any favors. Her policy positions were fucking insane. Right? I think her daughter's on like her 3rd unwed baby now as she continues to push for abstinence-only education and whatnot. And her daughter's even been in commercials with people like Mike from Jersey Shore and shit. So I mean, like I don't think it was just an accent thing. I don't know. I don't feel like she's playing. I feel like she's just real dumb. And so far as Trump, the challenge that I always give
she's not good at interviews.
Yeah, the challenge that I always give to Trump fans or whatever. Trump, maybe at one point in Trump's life, maybe he knew a lot about real estate. That's possible. I've seen him give old speeches in front of Congress before, in front of different committees, where he seems at least like decently well spoken. But over the past like 5 years, I think Trump is an irredeemable fucking moron. And people always get really salty at me when I say this, but my challenge has always been and will be, and is currently gone completely unmet. Link me a single video clip with Trump talking about anything related to governmental affairs where he's not reading a teleprompter, where he doesn't sound like a fucking idiot. You won't be able to do it. He doesn't know anything. He doesn't know anything about our security. He doesn't know anything about our intelligence agencies. He doesn't know anything about foreign affairs. He doesn't know anything about domestic affairs. He sure as fuck doesn't know anything about the economy. He constantly compares like our trade deficit to the national debt. Like these two things are like even comparable numbers. Like he talked about paying off our trade deficit, which you don't pay off a trade deficit. That's just the difference in exports and imports. Right? He talked about paying off our trade deficit with like the GDP or paying off our GDP deficit. I don't even know. Like Jesus fuck, he's so fucking stupid.
It's a little bizarre, but like the art. But you talk about the real estate. He didn't even write the art of the deal, right? I mean, a ghostwriter wrote it for him.
Supposedly,
right? He didn't even have the.
And the ghostwriter hates him.
Yeah, and somebody actually. Wait one sec. This is funny because the ghostwriter had actually tweeted something in relation to Trump in the book, and then one person actually responded to them, well, you obviously don't know anything about Trump in this book because this book says it all. He's like, I wrote the book, you idiot. It was great.
I saw that.
There's a thing. I'll say this, and then we'll close out the show because we are going close to the time. But yesterday I saw somebody tagged me in a Twitter post. The news or now this that news service that does the little
now this
real quick news news spots in Oklahoma, I believe it was. It's Oklahoma or Ohio. I need to look that up. But they're contemplating giving the death penalty for
Women who have
for
abortions?
people who, right? Yes, past a certain
It's Ohio.
past
It's Ohio.
a certain
It's fucked up.
Ohio.
Yep, it's a fucked
Yeah.
up law.
Here
It's
it
a
is.
fucked up law.
Here
They're
it is.
pushing
It's,
it in. Yeah.
It's punishable by death after 6 weeks. So after 6 weeks, if you get an abortion, that is punishable by death. Is the bill they're trying to press in the House there? What are your thoughts on that?
Thank you, John Kasich, you fucking moron. Yeah, no, I fucking hate that. I have friends in Ohio, and they're pretty pissed off about it. This is not a good thing. This is heinous. It's barbaric. It's savage. It's something you would find in a place like Indonesia or Pakistan. I don't think it has any place in a democratic Western society. So no, they need to take this thing out.
Feel the same way, Destiny?
Yeah, probably. I don't know if this was probably just something that was like brought up like in the legislative body. Like, did this even make it to a vote?
Yeah, it was,
or
it was it's being brought up now. They're doing the the back and forth on it. I'll send you the link to it.
Oh, they're trying to bring up this bill
Just
because
Google
they
now
want.
this.
Yeah, I'm reading it. They're trying to bring this bill up because they want to revisit. They're trying to get this pushed to the Supreme Court. This is hopefully their fodder for it to get Roe v. Wade overturned. Is what it sounds like.
What a
Trojan horse, yeah.
Yeah, so
That's
HB
ridiculous.
565 clearly flies in the face of the interpretations of the U.S. Constitution set up by the landmark 1973 U.S. Supreme Court decision Roe v. Wade, which guarantees access to abortion up until a fetus survival outside the womb. In the, as of now, unlikely case that HB 565 was passed into law, it would almost certainly be set up for a legal battle that would go to the U.S. Supreme Court. Yeah. That's something that many boosters of the bill and similar legislation would
It's a
actually
Trojan
like to
horse.
see. Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Shiesty.
Yeah, because they know it's
I just
absurd. It's
believe-
extreme, right? I mean, it's so ridiculous.
Yeah.
Death penalty for women who get abortions. I mean, that could be applied to women who have miscarriages, women who have medical abortions, medically induced abortions, because they might die if they have the baby. Like there's so many reasons why you can't have this fucking law. So it's absurd. But yeah, it's gonna go, get a Supreme Court challenge. That's what they want to do with it, so they can shoot down Roe v. Wade. It's disgusting. It's a ploy.
Right. I agree. Okay.
Yep, I can see that as well.
Well, I think we covered everything. I believe that pretty much once you and Ian are not so far off. We compared to last time.
We bring
anyway.
people together.
Steve,
Yeah.
yeah, that's right.
Thanks, Steve.
Yeah, no problem.
You want to roll with the super chats,
Yeah.
Steve?
Let's get them out of the way here. Okay, 0132 for 666. Never follow this channel, new viewers. This was a dumpster simmer, but there have been some dumpster infernos on this channel. This is true. Never follow.
That is true.
Zero. This was a simmer. This wasn't a full-on dumpster fire, but that's okay. Vibrantly, $2. Hashtag never follow. Thank you, Vibrantly. Brainiary, 50 crones. Kind of liked this discussion. Topic is moving all over the place, but it's good. Yeah, there's so many different
was good.
paths that these things can go down. This was really good.
It's
But as
enjoyable.
Destiny pointed out, one thing that somebody has said, 5 paths could be going down. It's a complex topic to say the least. Shigwire, 200 crones, or I think it's crones. Steve makes the perfect point. Thank you. I would add this. There are some studies suggesting that, quote, take offense triggers some release of excitement, hormones and neurotransmitters, thus making it potentially addictive. So people get offended because they are somehow like the high of it. And I think there's something to be said to that as well. I think I've seen
Dopamine
people, they
rush.
purposely go out of the way to be offended because they like the endorphins or neurotransmitters or whatever rush they're getting out of it. It means something to them. I don't take offense.
Same thing with
very
flat
easily. The only thing that offends me is when you start talking about like the troops, right? I do defend the troops. I think that if you were one of those people out there saying things against, the people that have defended their, given their lives to defend this country, I will take personal offense to that. Now, if you want to say people shouldn't join the military or you're against what the military does, that's the whole different ballgame. But be against the people that join for putting their lives on the line, I do take offense to that. But other than that, a few other things except for misrepresentations of people's positions. Matthew Littlejohn, $5. Name one fascist policy that Trump has implemented. I think that's probably to you, Destiny.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, in the United States, with our institutions right now, I don't think he's been able to implement any fascist policies. It doesn't seem to be very possible to do in the United States. I would argue that he has a fascist disposition, though. So, for instance, his relentless attacks against the media are very fucking frightening. His constant inability to tell truthful statements. He lies about everything, and he seems to be constantly obsessed with rewriting history. The very fucking weird, like, state media things that he publishes sometimes, and his constant attack and labeling of other government institutions as enemies of the people, which is a very big, like, fascist talking point. You're either with us, the people, or you're an enemy of the people. When he starts doing that to other institutions of the U.S. government that are supposed to check his power. So, for instance, when he does it to the DOJ, which can have his own people at the top that he's nominated, when he does it to the intelligence agencies that serve sometimes as arms of the DOJ as a check to power on the United States government, for instance, with the Mueller investigation right now, like, these are things that reek of authoritarianism, where it sounds like your goal is to mobilize the country under a single party to respond to times of great crises, right? How many times do we hear that everyone's about to kill us, the whole world is about to end, we're losing trade everywhere, fuck every other country, isolationist policies, hyper-nationalistic policies, like, these are all things that fall pretty easily in line with what a fascist would think. But no, he hasn't, like, implemented, like, he hasn't, like, taken over companies yet and mobilized them under the state, a state-run cartels or whatever, like they do in Venezuela or some shit yet. We haven't seen that.
Yeah, I definitely think that he's an authoritative person, and I think there's something to be said for isolationism. But I'm not going to go so far to say he's a fascist because, one, I don't think he knows what the meaning of the word actually is. But I do think he uses fascist language.
Sure.
There's no question he uses fascist language. I
don't think he
that
even
point, but
considers, right, that, like, what he says has an impact on other people. He's just saying it because he wants to say it, but it signals a lot of bad messaging to people who are, like, yeah, it's like a dog whistle. Yeah, they'll hear it as a dog whistle. He might not even intend it that way, but a lot of people do. A lot of people do, and that's dangerous, right? So I'm not saying he's a dangerous person, but you can't. He needs to be more careful about what he says.
Well, I mean, I think his handlers have probably given up at this point. I think a lot of them either are just giving him some shit and just letting him run with it, or, I mean, as Destiny pointed out, and I do agree with him, that Trump doesn't seem to be very well versed in any of these things when it comes to foreign policy, domestic policy, economics. He doesn't seem to have a clue. And even if they gave him the briefings in crayons, I still don't think he would understand it because they have actually said he doesn't understand the briefings. And so when you don't
pictures in it,
really know what's going on, do pop-up books for him or something. But when he says things like, you have to pay off the trade debt, or when you say you have to they actually wash coal. Clean burning coal, you wash it ahead of time. That's what makes it clean. He's not understanding how a lot of these things actually work.
Yeah.
So, that's what he said. They actually wash it in order to make it nice, clean coal. Okay. And let's see here. Jason, $5. Please change the name of the show to Smart People versus Dumb People Show. Would we get more?
I'm not sure. Ask him who he's talking about. That's the interesting question.
Yeah, Jason, let us know in the live chat there to whom you're actually can refer to, because everybody in this, I think, is smart. I happen to be friends with Ian. I think he's a very intelligent person, and I don't know Destiny, but everything he said so far, I find to be highly articulate and very well researched. So, now, if you talk about Kyle and I, we may be the dumb people. That's fine. Mo,
I'm definitely on the dumb
$5. If people are not offended once in a while, the motivation for free speech is lost upon deaf ears. But keep talking, but never forget to listen. Yeah, I agree with you on that. We are going to get offended. It's not how you go about what you do when you get offended. But free speech is going to offend some people. It's just the way it is in a society. We're allowed to have free speech. You're not going to please everyone. It's never going to happen. Anybody who's been on YouTube for a very long time knows you can't please everyone. It's futile trying to try. And you guys have very large channels. Destiny, you have a pretty substantial base. I'm sure you've noticed you're probably not going to, in any specific video, please everyone. I do have a video that has 100% likes.
Why would you say
very
that?
rare.
Yeah, you're gonna ruin it. Gonna go down.
What do you? Okay, let me ask you: what do you think is a good goal to have as far as like?
Oh, I don't know. But that donation take on free speech. That donation take on free speech was really dumb and really boring. Nobody that talks about being offensive or whatever. That's like the goal should never be to offend anybody. Usually when we talk about free speech, we're talking about like speech that leads to actual harm to people. That's like the interesting concept. I don't know any reasonable person that thinks that like, you know, we need to make it so nobody is ever offended by any speech ever. That's a boring and stupid conversation to have. It's more like there are certain forms of political speech that lead to people potentially becoming radicalized. Is the trade-off of that for our freedom worth it? That's the interesting question. Yeah.
That should be the crux of the conversation.
Yeah, that's the more interesting topic. Yeah.
Yes.
Totally.
Was there any others, Kyle?
I was gonna let them shield now. Plug the channel. What you got coming up? Where to follow you? That sort of thing. Ian.
Jesse can go first.
Yeah, I'm Destiny.
Okay,
My
Destiny.
website is destiny.gg. I stream at Twitch at twitch.tv/Destiny. Follow me on Instagram at Destiny. My YouTube channel is Destiny. I do politics and video games, although my YouTube shit is mainly politics now. So, yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah, I'll go.
All right, Ian.
I'll go next. I'm Ian Miles Cheong. You can find me on Twitter at StillGray. You can also find me on Instagram at StillGray. That's StillGray. You can also find me on YouTube, where I started a new channel a couple of months ago. I talk mostly about video games, but also a little bit about politics and the intersection between video games and politics. I got some nice videos coming up. It's called Hype Break, HYPEBREAK. You can also go to hypebreak.tv. It's just a quick link to the YouTube channel.
Awesome. All right, Steve. Anything you need to put out there before we close out?
No, I just want to say that this was a really good discussion between both of you. It's not exactly what I envisioned. I thought there was a lot more contention than you guys actually had, but I'm actually really kind of grateful that you guys were able to see eye to eye on a lot of things. It just goes to show that even people that have passed diametrically opposite positions can come together and have a reasonable discussion and talk about things they may, even a year ago, may have been completely different. Had we had this video a year ago, I think it could have been quite different, because I've known Ian a while now, not a hell of a long time, but even in that time, I've seen him change his position and grow a little bit. So, and I consider you a friend, Ian. So
I consider you a friend too, and I think a big reason for that is, the influence other people have on us. At least on me. I'm not speaking for anybody else here. People say things like, "Oh, Destiny's a bad person," so my perception, my preconception of who he is colored by that, and it makes me attack him more, I guess. But I mean, listening to him tonight, he's a normal, agreeable person. I mean, not agreeable is a bad term. He's someone I can agree with, right? He didn't say anything that's egregious or anything crazy like that. So, I mean, he's a smart guy. He's a smart guy.
Oh, wait, hold on. I got
Matthew,
something real important to say.
Little...
Can I?
Sure.
I want to give a shout out to Matthew Littlejohn. Can I shout out your super chats for you?
Oh, please.
Yes.
Oh,
please.
yeah. Shout out to Matthew Littlejohn. What a great comment. So left, this would prefer someone who says nice things but drops 8,000 bombs on Middle Easterners and invades multiple countries. So first of all, Trump has stepped up the drone strikes in Yemen to such a great extent that more civilians have been killed under Trump's administration by third-party review than happened under the entire Obama regime. So this idea that Trump, by the way, and people talk about Hillary wanted to invade Syria, Trump bombed one of their fucking airports. I don't know if you remember that or not, Matthew Littlejohn. But this idea that Trump is some like peaceful arbitrator of peace or some shit across the world is hilariously fucking stupid to me. Maybe if you spent all day on like the Donald, you might think that. But anyway, I wanted to give a special shout out to Matthew Littlejohn. That $10 that he borrowed from fucking mom upstairs while he was watching the show, great fucking way to spend it, you fucking moron. That's all I got.
Okay.
I'll take
Again,
I'll take that last
don't
one
hold
then.
back, Destiny. Tell us how you really feel,
Shigelmeyer.
man. You're very subtle sometimes.
Shigar says, thanks to Destiny, Ian, and of course the indomitable Kyle and Steve. This is for you all. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate that. Okay, we'll be back tomorrow. A doubleheader tomorrow on Saturday night. We've got Godless Engineer and Father Team Skeptic. Not used to be Father Skeptic. Team Skeptic. And then two new guys from the FE culture are stepping up to see if they can't convince us that the world is not a sphere. So we'll see how that goes tomorrow at 8:00. Catch you then.
Non sequitur. Your facts are uncoordinated. Non sequitur. Your facts are uncoordinated.
Wait, is anyone here?
Break what?
Sweet.
Oh, cool. Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate the conversation.
That was really
Okay.
really good.
Likewise.
Yeah, man.
That was
Hey,
really good.
great.
Thank you both for
Destiny,
doing
before you go, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
If I could get if I could get Sargon on, would you come and talk to him?
He won't, but I would.
Wow, that'd
yeah.
be brutal.
You
Well,
think
and
he
question,
will?
I'm gonna be afraid.
I mean, necessarily, why do you think that he won't? And the reason I'm asking that is that you obviously have done your research. I don't watch your channel, Destiny, so don't take offense. But from what I've seen just in this hangout, you clearly are educated on these topics. You know these things pretty well from what it seems. Why do you think that somebody like Carl, who doesn't want to go against somebody like you, when I notice Carl will take on lesser things, right? And a lot of people are like that. They seem to go for low-hanging fruit, but when we offer them a competitive thing, they turn away. And I'm trying to understand that mentality, because I will go against anybody. People know that I'm willing to take on anyone.
Yeah, because you
But
foster.
why do you think that maybe
you
Carl
foster a safe bubble for yourself where you can circle jerk with people about things without actually knowing what you're talking about? But when you have to confront somebody and you have to actually be prepared to discuss something with somebody who disagrees with you on facts, it becomes very uncomfortable for people like Sargon, who are demagogues. Sargon has a lot. When I call Sargon a demagogue, what I mean is he's got a lot of ideas and he's got a lot of stories, but all of these are based on unverified fantasy. Not like he has no foundation in fact whatsoever. He doesn't understand the majority of the topics that he talks about. Half the things that he says are fucking nonsensical, are non sequitur even. Haha, the name of the show. Like he'll make arguments that don't even logically follow from the premises, and the premises themselves will still be wrong. Like he's just an absolute fucking shit show of fucking ignorance. Like this, he doesn't even know. Like for instance, like I'll sit here and watch him, critique feminism because he's complaining about the effects of toxic masculinity on men in society, not realizing that that's one of the central critiques that feminism has. Like he's just a total fucking moron about everything he talks about, and I mean that in the most offensive sense possible. So I think that generally he probably would avoid confronting people that would challenge him on these things. Like, but I mean, maybe he would if he wants to.
Do you
I'll
think
do
it's
it.
an image issue?
What?
But do you think it's an image? Because Carl has an image, and do you think it's an image issue if he's going to be going against somebody that's well versed, because
He
he's
doesn't
gone
wanna look
against other
wrong.
people?
He will get
Right, because-
owned.
Well, he did
by the way,
he went against. He
Little
did.
John, Matthew
he
Little
did-
John says Trump and all of his fans just want to be left alone to America and build stuff. That's it.
Yeah, that's it. But like Sargon had gone against that feminist. I can't remember her name, but he didn't seem to really do a great job. And I think
Christy
it was a bit of a
Winters?
He did a
gas.
bad job. He was awful
Christie,
against Richard
Christie.
Spencer.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He was awful
I think
against
he's kind of
Richard Spencer.
shy. Do you
Yeah.
think it kind of left him gun shy a little bit?
Yeah, maybe. But I mean, yeah, if he wants to, I'll do anybody that disagrees with me. Sure. I mean, I feel
Alright.
like I'm right about everything
By
I
the way,
talk about. If
cool.
I'm not, then I'll gladly change my mind on it. So.
Well, that's welcome. Hey, you and I get along great. I
Excellent.
am right with everything I talk about. Hannah Anderson actually said just
That
now.
was
She
good.
said that went too
Everybody
fast.
loved it,
Great
guys.
show. She said it went by too
Yeah,
fast.
everybody loved it. So thanks for coming on, both of you.
Cool. Thanks for having me. See you later, guys.
Welcome.
All right, thank you guys.
Fuck, I can't believe fucking Ian. Fucking, I mean, like, on one hand, I guess I'm happy if he changes, but if he's like calling me a pedophile in like 2 weeks, I'm gonna be so fucking ass-feigned. Holy shit.